do you know the djembe, the like goat skin drum?
Okay, yeah.
Yeah. There's this South African musician who's huge into the djembe. It's his big thing. He was just like, I'm going to find some small community somewhere and I'm going to go there and teach them the djembe. And so he chose this Zit Island in the middle of Japan, in the middle of nowhere, where everybody's like aged. It's Japan. These are like 70-year-old fishermen. And he goes there. And to this day, the djembe is now like their cultural touch point. It's on their flag. They have like tourists coming in from around the world to join them in like jam sessions.
Cool.
We need to find isolated people and teach them something annoying, like slide whistles or something. Hey, everybody. Sam, back at it again with another Forehead Fables episode. I got my awesome co-host here, Other Sam, and we have a guest. Sent out a bunch of emails, the one sap to reply, Mr. Evan Hadfield, owner and operator of Rare Earth, where he goes around the world and makes videos on little historical oddities and stuff. Or how would you describe your channel?
I think that works. That's pretty good.
That works? Yeah.
Whatever comes to mind when you're traveling.
Yeah. And
I call it pretentious travel videos. We can go with that.
Pretentious travel videos, I think, would come with like a selfie stick.
Yeah.
Like right before we started this, he was saying like, I try not to do the type of travel videos where it's like, hey, what's up, guys? Back here in Malaysia, back for another thing.
Hyper editing with some filters.
Yeah. You actually do legit episodes and stuff. What goes into, like, do you just grab your toothbrush and walk out the door? Like, what the hell goes into traveling honestly, to, like,
kind of.
Because there's some of these videos are in, like, places where I would not want to go. No offense.
Yeah, I'd say most of them, honestly, you probably wouldn't want to go.
Do you just grab your passport and walk out the door and go there? Or?
Yeah. I think a lot of it just comes down to, like learning the situation. Like, I hate clubs, nightclubs, but there are dudes who are very good in those environments. Somehow they navigate them. It works for them. I 2 seconds in there and I'm already lost and scared and I'm running out, and I think that's kind of the same with the way that I travel, because I'm not really a vacationer. I don't in any way look down on that. Of course, vacation's awesome, but to pay for what I do, I kind of got to be there like 2 months. And those 2 months have to be quite hectic. And it's usually in a place like I was just in Lebanon, which is a wonderful country, but it's at war. And there's all sorts of issues that come with a place being at war. And if it's the first time you go to a country that's at war, then that would probably be a lot more hectic than like the fourth. Yeah. And the fourth time you're like, you just only have to show up with the toothbrush. It's fine. You have to know the situation. So I try to research as much as humanly possible about the place I'm going to, down to like social nuance, like who are the funny comedians, what's popular on TV right now, who are the YouTubers, that sort of thing. Because if you go to a place and that sort of stuff, it helps get you through like actual everyday life, chatting with people, because you are a tourist, but you're in locations in that country that tourists never go to. And so you don't have that same infrastructure within the minds of the people meeting you, who are ready for you to be in their space. And so you're kind of like when we were in Ethiopia, for example, we went to the part of Ethiopia that is run by Somali clans. For whatever reason, the name of it's not coming to my head right now. It's next to Harar, which is this beautiful ancient old city. And when you go out there, you can tell that like there hasn't been a tourist in this place you are in ever. If once. And so we went to this animal market, camels and goats and cows and stuff. And we step out of the vehicle and, not exaggerating, 85 people came over and formed a perfect circle around us, spreading out, hands reaching in to just get like one finger on our skin, just to touch it. And my buddy who was with us, he's got tattoos from his head all the way down, all the way. So we call him the White Rhino. And it's because imagine you were just sitting on your porch and like a white rhinoceros walked in front of you. How would you engage with that animal? It'd be so strange and so exciting. And you don't speak its language. You don't know what it's going to do or whatever. That is how people interacted with my buddy Eric, like all the time. And so when you get used to it, it's totally fine. But at the same time, you have to be comfortable with 85 people in a very strange foreign environment, literally trying as hard as they can to touch a millimeter of your skin. And they're dragging you over to their cows to be like, man, you got to see my cow. You got to rep my cow. Cause that's like their Mercedes, you know, there's like, they have this one animal that they sell for a wedding. And that's like their life is this $2,500 cow or whatever it is. And so they're dragging you over. A guy came to come stab us with knives because that happens also is people just get agitated because you're the white rhino. They don't know what to do.
That's what I would do to a white rhino.
You know?
Poach it. I think
but some people would, you know.
Yeah.
Throwing rocks is in rural Africa. You're going to get rocks thrown at you all the time, and they're not hostile. They're what you would do to the rhino. It's like look at me or whatever. Okay. You know, no different. And so that's how we started to develop this like. Okay, yeah, that's harsh. That's a harsh thing. But all you really need to do to get through that is be aware of what's going on, why it's happening. That's not pure hostility. It's not, it's more confusion and desire for interaction. A good example.
Is the most level-headed way of responding to a rock being thrown at you.
Oh yeah, and a big rock.
It's just simple, like, just a desire to communicate. I'd be fucking throwing a rock back. I'd be pissed.
You'd be dead in a minute.
I would be dead in a minute. I would
be dead in a minute. Yeah,
I would be. Yeah.
Oh man, like we get to Somalia. Right? Yeah. We get to Somalia, which is actually Somaliland. I'll already be in trouble for calling it Somalia because it's this little breakaway region. We get to Somaliland. We're flying in from Addis Ababa, and on the whole experience is crazy. I'm not going to get into the whole thing, but we're on the airplane after going through this whole like fake embassy process where the embassy originally denied us because Canada doesn't recognize their country. And then when they realized who I was, they rolled out the red carpet. When I came back, they had like 16 guys lining a stairway for me to like go up and get my visa. And so we go up and we get our visa. And my buddy, again, he's covered in tats, like covered, you know, ends of his fingers to the tops of his head, all the way around. And nobody says, not there in that office, not when we get on the airplane, not in the airport, never that is haram in Somaliland and they will attempt to skin you for having tattoos. Nobody mentions that, but that's obvious.
Yeah.
That is like the first thing we experience the moment we get there. So we're like,
you get skinned alive.
Yeah. We're like 45 feet from the hotel that we check into, and we check into a hotel, and hotels in East Africa, especially in this part of East Africa, have gunmen at the doors, AKs, and they could not look less like they would protect you. These men look like they're willing to hunt you the moment shit goes wrong. Like they're on somebody else's side and they're eyeballing you when you enter, and you're like, well, that's bad. You know, like that does not make me feel in any way safer. So you enter and we get up to our hotel room, we drop our shit off, and I'm like, all right. Somaliland was actually wealthier than Ethiopia was, and Ethiopia was fine. I was getting around just fine. So I'm like, you know, I think it's probably going to be all right. We take 45 feet out into the road. We walk past this MiG, there's this big MiG statue from when they were democided during the Civil War. And we walked under the MiG, which is 20 feet from the hotel. We're about 20 more feet down. And the rest of this story happens in like 2 seconds. Like it is the fastest, worst situation. But Buddy starts running at me with a rock above his head about this big to crush me. I'm like, uh-oh. But he's 100 feet away. But he's clearly coming. You know, like there's no question. There's no question what that guy's plan is with that rock.
Yeah, and he wasn't trying to be subtle with it. He wasn't like Shannon under his arm.
They came together when he's got the katana.
It's very much like that. And in East Africa, if you ever walk around, you'll always have kids sort of shadowing you. There'll be like 4 or 5 kids who just sort of walk behind you, you know, just hanging out, seeing what you're about, you know, white rhino stuff. And so this guy's running at me with a rock, and one of those kids who follows me tugs on my shirt, and I look over at him. He goes, "Don't worry, he's insane." I was like, that doesn't decrease the worry. I'd already ascertained that from the situation, right? Like that part, not confusing.
He's superhuman strong.
Me. I got this little kid tugging on my side. My wife is with me as well, and Eric, my buddy with the tats, is behind me. And while I'm doing this, a little kid comes up to Eric and starts tapping on his arm like this. And so Eric's like, "Yes, that's a tattoo," which is what he presumes the kid is saying, right? Like, is that a tattoo? He goes, "Yes, that's a tattoo." Kid just bolts off. And as that's happening, a rock about this big whips past my wife's face to the side of the road. And I turn around to check on that, and a guy grabs me by my shirt. He's smaller than me, but he grabs me and he goes, "You Muslim?" I was like, wow, no, but I got no disrespect, which was absolutely the wrong answer. There was one answer, and that answer was yes, and I gave the wrong answer. So now he's spinning me around. I still got Buddy coming at me with the big rock over my head. Kata, my wife's getting these rocks thrown at her, and that kid comes running back with a screwdriver and just goes straight at Eric's arm to like skin him. Because he's got tattoos. That's haram.
Yeah,
It's just not allowed. Right?
Naturally, yeah.
And again, we're talking like 2 seconds. All of this happens, and this old man, like a 70-year-old man, looks like, I don't know, like an AI version of what an imam might look like. He just sort of tugs my shirt and he goes, "You should leave." And because all of this stuff is happening, like I don't quite register that statement. It takes me again, like a half a second or another half a second, and he does it again. He said, "You should leave," and at that point, I'm like, "Yeah." And so we cruise back to the hotel.
How far away was the guy in the distance with the big rock? Was he still
15 feet, 20 feet?
Oh, he was still a quarter mile out.
But by that point, we'd had so many people rush over that he wouldn't have been able to get to me anyway. At this point, we have like 16, 20 people. Like if you ever stop and start engaging, it just, you crowd up. So that sort of stuff is really, really wild for like first time,
Yeah.
But then you're there for 2 months, and that was day one. And 6 weeks in or 3 weeks in, it just doesn't feel the same anymore. It's like, this is how things go.
I don't want to ever, I don't think, normalize a guy running at me with a big rock or a kid stabbing me with a screwdriver and trying to peel my skin off. But honestly, I think I would have gotten back on the plane after day one, personally.
Yeah,
but
I had to send Eric back immediately.
Like you did?
I was going to say, did he stay?
You look too cool, dude. Stay. Get the hell out of here.
I mean, there was just nothing we could do. He couldn't leave his room without agitating society.
Yeah.
And like we went back up to our hotel room. I locked my wife in the hotel room, and I had her put the chair against the door as if that would have done something. And and I just went and I walked the entire city back and forth by myself just to prove like I can do it.
Yeah.
Eric's got to go. He's obviously setting him off. The camera seems to be setting him off. Like, should I leave? Do I have to leave? And so I just did one big walk up and down the street, and I had guys behind me just saying, "Israel, Israel, CIA, CIA," as I'm walking up and down the road. And this is sort of what I mean earlier by like, you have to read the room. I turned around and I start making jokes. Like I joined them in it. And the moment I do that, they're laughing with me because you're the white rhino and you turn around and you made a little snort, they're like, "Oh shit, we got him," And so, you need to know who to engage with. Obviously Buddy with the rock is serious about it, but the guy behind you just chanting CIA. He just wants the white rhino to snort, man. That's all he's looking for.
Hey buddy, you live under a rock? Yeah, try to make a joke with him or something. You probably refuse it.
No, that's a sprint away situation. But like, we're in.
That was a follow-up question. Was like, when you go to these like a war-torn country, do you bring like a crew? Because it looks like it's just you and your cameraman. So it's just okay.
If I have a cameraman, so my cameraman and I got attempted murdered in Bosnia, and he had a serious traumatic response. And ever since then, it's like I just don't want to risk somebody else. Like I'll risk myself. I don't mind, but.
Wait, in Bosnia, like it's still rough there? I thought after
Bosnia is a wonderful country. Just because shit happens to me, doing what I do is not indicative of that country's safety level.
Okay, I was about to say,
it could happen anywhere.
The 90s.
Yeah, it could happen everywhere. And I choose to engage with people in situations that deliberately get me in a lot more trouble. Like that night, I was interviewing the mafia in Sarajevo. Like I made a choice. Okay. That's not why. It's totally coincidental to why I got attempted murder. But, you bring it on yourself, right? I can't pretend. Sarajevo's awesome. I would recommend everybody visit there on vacation. It's not dangerous any more than an average American city would be. And it's really, really fun. Really cool place. So, you got to take a grain of salt that stuff. Shit happens. But, when you throw yourself out there all the time, you have to expect stuff's going to come back.
Can you elaborate on the attempted murder? Or is it like something you don't like to talk about? Or
none of this stuff bothers me.
Is it a big rock or what was that?
No, giant rock guy.
Small
15 feet though. When he gets closer.
That guy was still running from.
Yeah, he followed you from Ethiopia.
Yeah, he's looking for me, just circling the
considerably.
Oh man, the cardio on that guy. Yeah. Oh god, yeah. So we were in Bosnia. I was interviewing a guy who tried to sell me a grenade on our first night. Like, I love my buddy Eric, awesome. That guy with the tats, is one of the funniest dudes you'll ever meet in your whole life. And he had a really hard upbringing. He's a very tough boy. He's got a background you don't talk about on podcasts. You know, he's a tough boy. And he goes with me when he feels like it, just for the shits, because he and I, we both have a similar view of if tomorrow's coming or not, you know, and then you live a different life that way, right?
Your friend with the tattoos, or a Somalian kid with a screwdriver?
Yeah.
Who do you think would have won that if nobody intervened?
Oh, that kid was in trouble. Yeah.
Really? Okay.
that kid doesn't know who he's talking to. Yeah. No. Yeah. Oh, it's so funny. Because also Eric's like, he's a man with a temper problem sometimes. And so, you know, Africa's going to agitate you at moments.
Yeah, that would agitate me too. I would have been upset if I was him.
And he calls me the walking Valium, because I can always just talk him down from whatever he's all pissed about. But yeah, so Eric is the funniest dude in the world. And he and I, like, we're on the road. We drive 11-hour days to go film for 25 minutes, some obscure little thing up in the hills. And then the next day we drive another 11 hours. And you go fucking crazy. Like, you play stupid games. We're both stupid men. And so one of the games we play is called the Unicorn Game, which is basically you take a group of, generally you're trying to find dudes who are on a bachelor party, but really just any people who would be uncomfortable. And then you just say, go do the unicorn. And the other guy's got to walk up to him, tap the obvious leader on the shoulder and be like, do you know how a unicorn trots in Canada? And then you just start trotting around their table. And you have to do it until it cannot be funny to them anymore. Like they could be on board for the first 3.5 minutes.
Yeah.
But minute 5, man, it's over.
That's
like
generous.
they're just
3 minutes of a guy.
Yeah, they want you gone.
Around my table, I'd be like,
oh God,
you do exactly. 2 times around my table, and I'll say, you know what?
Especially
one time, hilarious. 2 times.
So that's the joke, is that you can't be on board. You can't make it funny. It's only funny to us because we have ruined it for you. And Eric is so tough, and he's a big motherfucker. You know, you would never stop him. You'd never think about even engaging with him doing this around your table. And so he's doing that around some table in Sarajevo down the strip, some steakhouse that we're eating at because we're bored as fuck. And the staff of like 4 restaurants comes out to laugh. They think it's the funniest thing they've ever seen in their life because they fucking hate these British tourists who come to do their bachelor party in Sarajevo. They get horrifically drunk. They don't tip. And then they, vomit all over the streets. Everybody hates them. And so seeing them getting fucked with by Eric, this dude comes out and he's just like, listen, you're the funniest dude I've ever seen. Do you want to buy a grenade? We're like, yeah, obviously. And this guy turns out to be like a connected dude. Very nice guy, super friendly to us, takes us around Sarajevo for a bunch of days. And then we're hanging out with him at like 2 a.m. a couple nights later, just doing some basic interview stuff, like not actual interview, but getting the background info we need to actually go make these stories. And we're walking home and we hear 2 gunshots and like 16, 20 people just come sprinting around this apartment building corner. And it's in nightclub downtown Sarajevo. You would never expect it. Safe part of town. It'd be like, I don't know, fucking Manhattan or something for New York. And so you wouldn't expect it. But these people are just pouring out and we're too close and we don't, we're kind of drunk and it's 2, 3 a.m., something like that. So we sort of know what's going on, but we don't know. There's no immediate fight or flight, run, do something. But a guy comes running by, a Bosnian guy grabs us and he just goes, Mafia. And so we turn and we start sprinting and we take it up this one alleyway because we are fucking 100 feet from our apartment building or something like that. We were so close. And we turn up this one alley and it's like that noir movie from the 50s where you've got the light at the end, but you've got that shadow angle. And as we're like 10 feet from the shadow, 3 dudes just step out from it and pull out a chrome piece. And they just put it right in Eric's face right here. And we're like, me and my cameraman, Francesca, are like 15 feet behind Eric. And they think we're rival drug dealers because we got a backpack on and we got a look. Eric's got a look,
Yeah.
And so they're just fucking cock ready to go. And Eric, being a genius of this situation, just drops below the gun. And just goes, I'm a tourist. And you can hear them in Bosnian slap the other guy, goes, turista, and so then they just rob us.
Try the unicorn thing on them.
Yeah, just a simple
do the unicorn on them.
I should have unicorn. That would have been the funniest possible response to that situation would be yell out, do the unicorn.
Probably be dead.
So
honestly, no.
you?
I think I could have got away with more in that situation, but in the moment,
yeah,
you're so tense. It was clear the moment Eric yelled "tourist" that they weren't going to escalate, and so I think that should have been our moment to leave.
Unicorn. Oh,
just fucking go. They're not going to pop me, right?
Yeah.
But in that exact second, you're just on the ground with your hands behind your head. So we get back to our apartment, which is again like 50 feet away. And we realized that what they took from us has like that apartment's name, the keys, like the spare keys. They can totally get in if they want to. And they just took probably $15,000 worth of equipment off of us. So so they come back, which we noticed. My buddy and I are smoking a joint on the balcony, trying to de-stress. And we see them roll up in this
horrible time to be high.
Yeah, it's like the worst.
And like 3:30 in the morning.
Behind us.
Yeah, and we're just like we're so fucking amped up too. My adrenaline has peaked so high and come down, so I'm in that like moment. And we're standing on the balcony and we see this van roll up and it's got 3 guys in the front seat and they're just looking up immediately as they turn the corner at our balcony, like catch eyes with us from like 150 feet away in the front seat of the van, screech to a halt, and 5 dudes get out and just flank the 2 sides of our apartment building. And we're like, fuck me, obviously they're going to come upstairs. Obviously this is going to be a problem. There's 5 dudes or whatever, and there's 3 of us. And when we tell my cameraman this, just straight traumatic response, body drops, starts quivering on the floor, like not even his brain. Like he just shut up. And I've never seen that happen before. Never seen it happen since. It was insane to see it happen. Like he was a noodle. You pick him up and he just dropped. Couldn't do anything. No disrespect to him at all. Not even, this is nothing you can control. And so now it's just 2 guys, Eric and I. And we're on the top floor. It's like an 11-story building with no elevator, so you got a little time, but it's got 2 doors, which is so funny. Everything about these stories is always so fucking funny in retrospect. But you got this front door, which is like a 6-inch steel. Nobody with a tank is getting through this thing. And then the balcony back door is glass and like that. What is the point, bro? So my first, I'm a quick thinker in these types of situations, and I ran to the back door, the glass door, and I got a glass picnic table that they had for like hanging out on the balcony, and I wedge it. So at the very least, if they bust open that thing, it's 2 glass things breaking. It's going to sound like hell on earth. And in Bosnia, like if you break into an apartment building and start running up, there's other dudes in that apartment building who are just going to start shooting. It's not, you can't just be breaking into things. So we do have some feeling like they're also a little afraid of what they're doing right now. And if we make a huge amount of noise, maybe they'll rush off. But then I get back to Eric, and there's like a foyer that goes into a perpendicular hallway. So like you have to enter from this, and then you'll hit a wall T. So we're on the walls right here with knives in hand. And I'm like, if they go through that back thing, though, we'll be fucked, even with the noise. We really need them to go through the foyer. It's like, if they've got guns, which they undoubtedly do, you need to be right up on them. Right? Like you have no chance if they're 12 feet away, 15 feet away. There's nothing you could possibly do in that. They got to be right the fucking ninja star. Which I would have done.
You should have some Home Alone traps set up by the time they got up there.
Yeah, so we opened the front door. We just crack it. And we're like, come through here, And then we stood there for about 3 hours waiting for them to come up the stairs.
3 hours?
Never came. Yeah, because like, what am I going to do? Go to bed?
Yeah.
Fuck, man, your
friend that was like a noodle on the floor, did he ever get up in that 3 hours, or was he just no, he was just out for 3?
No, man. We actually hauled him into a shower. He and I have talked about it a lot. His first memory after us going down outside is us cold hosing him down in the shower. Like that's the first thing he remembers, because we hauled him, like dragged him into the shower, because we were trying to get a 3rd guy with a knife, right?
Yeah,
it's like 2 dudes versus any amount of dudes. It's better as 3. you know, and we're just trying to get him up. So we're, you know, cold hosing his face, being like, bro, you know, lifting him, dropping him, lifting him, dropping him. And it's like, all right, well, just fuck it. We can't with that.
He's like a scapegoat or something. Dude, he's like, when shit goes down, he falls. He's the sacrificial.
Yeah, he's those fainting goats. Total fainting.
Yeah.
Get a big flight this week. I just need someone to put a gun to my forehead, and I'll wake up in San Diego. Oh my God, I'm getting hosed down.
Yeah, man.
In my Airbnb, just what happened? Where am I?
Oh yeah.
I'm gonna need an air marshal to put that to my temple.
Yeah, it's like $70 more on Spirit Airlines, and they'll just go into the head, you know.
So he's been relegated to just safe countries as a cameraman.
Yeah, so I try not to put him in too bad situations. But he and I have been through a lot. It's just certain situations, you know, it's triggers, man. The brain's a weird thing. I don't feel that way internally, so I don't really understand it. But I do, like, there's no way that guy wanted to be doing that. Like, there's no way in that situation that was his desire, you know.
Like one of the biggest dudes I've ever seen, and he was also a guy that I would be scared of fighting. He was just like a big corn-fed motherfucker that was in this English class with me. He had to stand up in front of the class to do a presentation, and he fainted. Like, it was too much for him. Yeah, and I was like, dude, like. It was just funny to me seeing somebody that just is so gung-ho, looks like he could just beat your ass. Yeah. And then the pressure of talking in front of people just reduced him to nothing. So,
it's funny. I know.
3 hours on the ground.
Yeah, but 3 hours on the ground is kind of funny.
There's this astronaut named Story Musgrave, and he's like the coolest astronaut who ever was. He's so smart and whatever. Story Musgrave, man, if you put him on stage to talk in front of people, he's terrified. Like, he just can't do it. And it's like, this is a dude who went to space multiple times, like sat on a bomb. And yet, if you make him stand in front of, he's one of the most interesting men on earth. Just talk about yourself, say anything you've done or think about, and it's all cool, you know? Yeah. And yet he can't. And that's so crazy to see. Like, cause then you talk to him one-on-one 7 seconds later. And he's like this genius, super cool dude. Just, it's weird.
Some people don't like the pressure of it. Yeah. In front of a bunch of people. Yeah. I like that Chris Hadfield guy, though. That guy's way cooler than that other dude you said.
Yeah, no, he's all right. He's all right.
He's all right.
Yeah, he's got a bunch of books behind me.
What, he's some sort of super fan?
Yeah.
Decorated your room to look a lot like his.
This is all just the decor of my living room.
We'll go to space camp.
Space fan.
What's kind of what I was thinking of after I saw that your dad was Chris Hadfield. When he went up to space, how old were you?
First time? 10? I think. Second time, 16. It was on my birthday.
Is that scary to just be like, bye, Dad?
As you get older in life, sure. But when you're 10, no concept of it. It doesn't. Really? It's like your dad goes off to be a.
Had you heard of like the Challenger explosion at that age, or no?
At 10, it means nothing. And at 16, you're so self-involved, you don't really think about it. And then he went up when I was like 30-ish or 28 or something like that.
You're probably biting your nails. Yeah.
Yeah, 28. Yeah, exactly.
Yeah. At that age, yeah. When you were 16, you were probably like, fuck Home you. Alone. Like, as the rocket was going up. See you in 6 months.
Yeah. And you know, being the kid of someone who's like an A-type, and then not just that, but I was his marketing PR that like turned him into an international figure. So it's like building a shadow that you live in. And it's
weird.
I'm not going to say it sucks because it has so many upsides that you can't complain about it, but it sucks, right? Like, you're not a real person ever. You are the son of a real person, no matter how successful you become. Like, I would have to be a
real person to me until about 45 minutes ago when I learned your dad was Chris Hadfield.
Yeah. But that happens with a lot of people. And then you can actually see the shift in how you get treated. Which I don't like at all. Like, I try really hard not to promote that as a part of myself, but at the same time, I don't hide it. It is a fundamental part of who I am. I just think it's so weird and so cringeworthy whenever people who grew up with a successful parent, like Meghan McCain it, and are just like, that's their whole job. It's just like, man, did you know I come from whatever the current form of aristocracy is, you know, like it's so stupid. And yeah, and money and the economy means nothing anymore. So everybody just thinks money is like this nebulous concept, and nobody wants to be a thing or do a thing. They just want to have the money so that they can live this boring consumerist life. And I just don't like that. I never enjoyed that. If that's what you want to do, more power to you. But I really enjoy doing stuff, just going out and throwing myself at stupid things.
Do you find that that type of lifestyle kind of prevents you from what's the word for it? Gathering moss? Like you have a wife, but I mean, I'm sure there's some places you go to where you're like, honey, you're gonna have to stay home for this one. I'm going to Saudi Arabia or something like that. Like, I mean, that lifestyle kind of prevents you from having a family or something like that.
Yeah, right? in a respect, I never thought I'd get married. The fact that my wife married me, which we were young too, like 23 or something, I just presumed nobody could put up with the way I live. Because
that's most dudes, by the way. I'm married to
all women suffering constantly.
Yeah. I asked the question. She said yes. I was like, you sure?
Are you sure?
Yeah, that was a pretty quick response. I'll give you a fucking trial period if you want.
Yeah. Have you done the math? Like, for real, you know?
You thought about this? All right.
Yeah. Do you know what I do in private? Like, come on.
Talking about forever here.
Yeah, so my wife, and then we just talked about kids a lot, and it's like, I don't want to do that to a kid. And I also don't want to change how I live. Because this isn't a show. Yeah. This is a vapid representation of what I'm trying to live in my life. You know, I used to do this all the time before there was YouTube. This is just what I liked to do. I love going to a place and throwing myself at a part of it that you shouldn't enjoy and trying to find some, you know, pleasure in it, normalcy in it. Like going to Somalia or Somaliland. I keep being rude about that. Going to Somaliland sucks from like I'm a tourist perspective. That it couldn't be worse almost, you know. If you're just going someplace, like they have this marathon there that people fly in to do. It's like, what the fuck is wrong with you? Like this is not a place to be flying in to do like those, you know, pick me marathons. Like this is an insane choice to make, but they do. And I would never do that. That to me is insane. But I really wanted to meet, like, for example, Edna Aden in Somaliland. I really wanted to meet that woman. And so for me, like, you have to be the type of person who will go there if you want to experience that in your life. I don't think it's about me. I don't think it's about like collecting experiences so you can whatever. I just think like I look at a thing. I want to experience it. I want to see that. I want to know what it is. You know what it is? My father being famous, when I read the news about him, never, not one time ever, maybe that's a bit of an exaggeration, but like 95% of the time, there is a glaring factual error in that information. And it's about my family, so I would know, right? Like glaring. They get his name wrong, first name. Like that's insane to get his name wrong on a major news publication, but they do every single time. And to me, then I think like, all right, what do they know about Somalia? Honestly, like everything I've ever read was from the news. They get my dad's first name wrong. I got to go see it. Like, I'm not saying that they're wrong necessarily, but what is the omission of facts? What are the other things that they're not telling me about? Like I have a great friend in Ethiopia now, insanely cool dude. He was just an engineer for Air Ethiopia. And in Ethiopia, it's an insane country. They are an empire, but their states are based on race. Imagine America had black, Asian, white, Native American, and these are all the states. And you cannot live in another state if you're that. You're not allowed to cross the border. There are, I think, 80 million people in Ethiopia, and 3 million of them are internal refugees because of the border civil wars of all these different groups. Like, they're just not a country. They're all these little sub-ethnicities just constantly fighing. And my buddy is half and half. He's Oromo and Amharic, which are kind of the two who hate each other the most, I suppose. Depends on how you view it. And there's only one place in the country, which is the capital, Addis Ababa, that they're allowed to live because he's half. And so he put on a personal blog.
Like he would be able to walk through both. Like a day walker.
Like
yeah. Until they know, like, it just doesn't really work that way. It would be like being, I mean, it's probably, I don't even know if this word's still used, but a mulatto person in slave times.
Yeah.
Like, yeah, you're not, but you are, you know? And so I think it's like that for him because, so he puts on this blog, personal blog, not a journalist, just hanging with 4 other guys, kind of like what we're doing with this podcast, but back in the days of blogging. And he just wrote, where the fuck am I supposed to live, man? You know?
Yeah.
Like, what am I? What is this country if we're not going to get along? If I'm not allowed to live in other parts of this country, are we a country? What's the point? Yeah. And they locked him up for 3 years. They tortured him with abuse for a full year every single day. And this guy's a normal, he's one of us, you know? And so I talked to him about it. He's like, man, they beat it into me. I wasn't willing to fight against this before, but now, after that, like I'm hardcore about it. And that was insane to me, to meet this guy who's like so cool and so down to earth. And he's just a friend of mine. When I went to Ethiopia, I wrote, one of my closest friends is Ethiopian. I wrote him, I'm like, who do you admire? And he's like, oh, my buddy from college. Just this guy. He's not, CNN's not coming to help this dude. He doesn't have followers. He's a guy. He's an engineer from Ethiopia Airlines. And, you know, when you grow up in Canada, you can never experience that dude properly. You don't get to feel what that guy is, you know? Yeah. And my buddy Eric, he grew up in a very white part of Canada in New Brunswick. He had no experience with black people before we went to Africa. And he met that guy, like one of the first people we met. And you could literally see gears in his head change. Like you could literally see stuff starting to like click together to be like, wow, that's an impressive human being, you know? And so you just don't, to me, you don't get that experience unless you sort of force it on yourself. There's no reason to meet that guy as a tourist. Why would you do it? It's a risk. You know, it just doesn't help you. And you're not going to make money telling his story. He's not making money telling his story. So it's not even like you're doing it for the dollars. You just have to love it. You have to love knowing he's there. Kind of gives you a little bit more respect for how the world isn't as bad as we constantly make. Like there are dudes just like that surrounding us all the time. And, you know, just give him a little respect and a volume. And
that makes the world sound horrific. You said that guy was in prison for years and tortured.
Yeah.
I didn't know that shit existed. I thought everybody else was just hanging out me.
No, I mean, most have just been shattered.
I thought the world was a lot more chill.
Their money.
Little Utopia. Yeah, man. The rainbows over there are just more vivid. You know?
Yeah. I mean, I knew there was some struggle over there, but I didn't think there was states based on race, which sounds pretty shitty. But
it's so much worse than that. But I just don't want to get into it because it's like everything's horrible if you dig in too hard.
Yeah.
But
you know, I mean, is that like the most dangerous place you've been? Wait, actually, hold on. You kind of go to these places and you talk about how dangerous they are and everything, which if it gets to that point, there has to be, the rest of society has to be kind of broken down, I would think too. Like, what the fuck do you eat over there? There can't be like safe Westerner food in Somaliland.
No, God. Well, actually, so Somaliland's different. Ethiopia, absolutely. If you're outside of Addis, you are eating tibs and injera and local stuff. Yeah. You're getting sick for sure.
Oh, okay. I was about to say,
I thought I was going to die in Ethiopia. I got a fever in Ethiopia that I was hallucinating for multiple days at a time. like 2 straight days, full hallucinations.
The mirage.
And I was in a non-running water, non-electricity part of the country, in a hut, and it was like 36. It was like it was like 92 outside, 95 outside, something like that. Like rough, real rough. And I'm just in this hut, dying under this mosquito net. And I filmed 2 videos during that. They got me up. They walked me to where I had to film it. I'd vomit. Then they'd turn the camera on. I'd do my A-roll. They would turn the camera off. I would curl up on the ground. They would, get ready. And then I'd just do it again because we had 2 days and I was sick. Like I couldn't not do that. So that's sort of my attitude is like, well, I mean, I'm fucking here.
Okay. So when I ask what do you eat that's safe? And you're like, oh yeah, you just eat what they make you. But then you said, "Oh yeah, but you get sick and almost die."
Yeah, no, that's you swallow the bitter pill. You swallow the bitter pill, and the hotels you're staying in. I mean,
maybe that's worse than the food. Travel's not for me. I think I'll stick to the Rockies.
Parts
maybe
of it sound very exciting. I'm getting almost like a Secret Life of Walter Mitty level, like wanderlust after this. But also, I feel like the biggest pussy in the world because the other day I choked on that bay leaf. And it was really scary. I swallowed a bay leaf in my soup.
Yeah, no, that's a real danger, man. Those things don't break.
Yeah,
no, they don't. I still got it. It clogged my windpipe, and I was very scared I was going to die in my living room.
Nemesis, yeah.
No,
but that's the real way you die is bay leaf. It doesn't matter.
The boring.
Doesn't matter.
Yeah,
I hope it's not. Man, I don't want to.
I think bay leaf's a funny way to go.
It is kind of, yeah.
If I want to go, there's a couple ways I want to go. I want to go as a conspiracy theory that's not true. I want all of the pieces to line up towards something that is absolutely not the case, but it's like undeniable. So everybody just thinks that happened. I think that'd be very funny.
Like a UFO like squishes you as it comes down.
Yeah. But it's all set up.
A rock painted like a UFO.
Yeah, it's like a Watchman UFO. I did it all just to get the USSR and the US to hold hands, right?
Exactly.
Yeah. I think that would be the smartest man in the world. Way to go.
I think about ways I'd like to die, and choking definitely not up there.
No.
I've always wanted to kind of like rouse a crowd and like make people think I'm about to pull off a miraculous, magician's trick, and then I just kill myself. People are like, just think it's a trick gone wrong, or they're, for like 10 minutes being like, okay, he's going to pop out somewhere, but I'm just dead.
See how long you can make him sit there before the audience gets up and leaves, not realizing that you're not getting out of that sarcophagus.
Yeah, Houdini's not getting out of the water tank.
That sarcophagus that had a boulder dropped on it. All right, where's he gonna pop up?
Yeah, that Iron Maiden has leaked a lot of blood.
Yeah, there's a pool in it.
Oh God, it's gone wrong.
Yeah,
I just thought jumping off a skyscraper with a crowd and being like, everybody check this out, I'm about to pull off the most miraculous stunt, and then you're just falling for a while,
like that guy who jumped off the Eiffel Tower with the first like parachute or wingsuit or whatever, who 0% drop in speed,
I have a new invention. It's a big umbrella.
It's one of the first videos ever made. Not only do you get to go down in history as one of the first videos, it's just for smoking yourself,
and it's like the crash is kind of funny, like the way
of course it's funny. He made that choice, It became funny the moment he jumped off the Eiffel Tower. I don't care, that was a decision. There was no gun to his back. He made a wingsuit. He made his decision.
I'm sure the cameraman that day was so stoked. He was like, they came out with this new invention, the camera. And thankfully, the dumbest shit I've ever seen is about to happen.
I just got a perfect idea. Fail Army. I just thought of a YouTube channel.
Yeah, so far before his time.
Yeah, that'd be great. The big silent picture card comes up.
I don't know what that means yet. But.
Fail Army.
Splat. Oh man. That'd be all right. Or something super funny. It's got to be funny, universally funny.
That's I've thought about that so much. Like, I'd love to do a final joke or something, or like, like make my roommates laugh or write something funny down. But then it's like, no, I was actually just really scared.
Yeah, no,
freaking out. It's a lot harder in the moment. So I know a thing or two about being close to death. Afraid.
Yeah, it's not good. It's not great. But I actually feel like everyone should experience it a little to have a better understanding that it is coming. Because you just have to live your life. In like, what's that Buddhist thing? Like, you fall off the cliff, but you catch a strawberry and then you focus on the strawberry the whole way down. I think that's kind of bullshit. Because the strawberry only really is valuable if you know that you fell off a cliff, right? Otherwise, it's just one of a million strawberries going to eat in your life. It's only when you accept the cliff also that the strawberry gets the meaning when you focus on it. So you can't be so focused on it that you don't know that like it's a finite world and you are going to splat off that Eiffel Tower at some point. So live the way you want to, be kind of yourself. I know it's cliche, but it's honestly true. Do what you like, because it's fun. It's more fun to do it that way. And it's why I love working with that guy, Eric, buddy with the tats, because he sees the world exactly like I do. Exactly. is that today's not a given at all. Tomorrow's definitely not a given. So just do, like, you guys asked me to be on this podcast, and it doesn't align with what I make, but it was like, man, that sounds fun. And I didn't want to do that because it sounds like a cool time hanging and
So
chatting
I could
bullshit.
die tonight.
Yeah. And if I die tonight, I will, at least I did the thing I wanted to do. At least I got to see your beautiful mugs, That's
Forehead Fables, the end of my legacy.
Oh, and he would be the second guest of ours that's died.
Oh, yeah.
We also had John Mcafee on here.
Oh, did you?
Yeah.
Did you?
Yeah. And then he tried to do some sort of Epstein death in prison where he was like, I didn't commit suicide. And then he committed
he was
suicide.
going for the conspiratory theory thing. He understood that that's how you got to go. He's too egotistical,
was too fucking coked up and stuff to know it didn't line up very well. He
spent his whole life so absurd that you just, crying wolf too long.
That's the problem. You can't just be crazy your whole life and then try to pull something crazy because then it's just normal.
Exactly.
You got to at least have the guise of normalcy.
Yeah. They call it switcheroo, not just a roo,
Yeah.
Yeah. But what he should have done was...
Mcafee.
Yeah.
He and I have similar hammock ideas.
Oh, really? Yeah, I heard
I know about his hammock?
I heard about his hammock thing where I think he had he would lay under a hammock and then have a girl shit through a hole in the hammock.
Cut a hole in his hammock down there in the old...
Interesting.
Yeah, I think shit on his face or on his chest or something. I forget.
Yeah, I feel like you guys should have inquired deeper into the
I
hammock.
wasn't there.
Yeah, this was before he was also a host.
Oh, I see.
Yeah.
That's all I want to know about the man.
He was
dimensions of the hammock.
Does it have to be a hammock because he likes it to swing and kind of one
this is what you guys should have inquired.
I should have, yeah.
Like, is it... Well, because why would a table not work with a hole in it?
I think I still I have his widow's email address. I think I could. That'd probably be in poor taste. I think to
have her on. Hey, how many? What?
A dying question about Mr. Mcafee now that he's been dead for a while. About this whole shitting in a hammock thing.
Yeah, I've heard a rumor. I would. Yeah.
Yeah, I don't think she would be stoked about that.
Quick cue. Have any of the blueprints left lying around? Replicate.
Yeah, did he have any prototypes that you could send me?
This could change everything.
Yeah. No, I think that lady's probably pretty pissed. I think her meal ticket's dead, and I think she's upset about it.
She probably gets some meal right from the
there's residual tickets.
Maybe. I don't know.
She's probably fine.
That guy was hunted by the U.S. for tax reasons or whatever, so I'm assuming his money might be trying to get seized by multiple countries. That guy was weird. He was all over
$100 to come on here.
Yeah.
Quick see
how hungry she is. Hello? My mummy's on.
You? Please, oh.
My mummy's on the other line. More like my money's on the other line, saying thank you for saving me. Thanks to Factor's no prep, no mess meals. Hey guys, 35 different meals with 60 different add-ons to choose from. I mean, I'm not a mathematician, but that's a lot of options. Crush your wellness goals. Okay, they have dietitian approved meals with ingredients you can trust, from breakfast to dessert. Okay, 2-minute meals that are ready, no prep, no mess. Keep the kitchen time to a minimum. Okay, you don't have to shop for the ingredients, you don't have to prep, you don't have to clean up really. Okay, so why don't we just head to factormeals.com/4head50 and use code 4head50 to get 50% off your first box plus 20% off your next month. That's code 4head50 at factormeals.com/4head50 to get 50% off your first box plus 20% off your next month while your subscription is active.
Yeah, that's funny. No, my podcast experience generally involves ruining podcasts of people who didn't quite understand that I'm not as serious as I come across on my channel.
Yeah,
so I go on shows and then I say something stupid and you can just literally feel the air in the room disappear. And then I got to sit there for another 30 minutes with a bunch of people who now obviously don't like me.
Yeah.
And, I love doing
that. I'm really worried about the opposite where, it's like, oh my God, this guy's way more serious than we realized. And then we say something stupid.
Oh, yeah.
And the guest is like, you've insulted my intelligence and my time. And
it's your living room, you know?
Yeah.
It's not my living room. I show up in your house. I'm going to talk what you guys want to talk about. Seems rude to show up and then be all hoity-toity about it, you know?
Well, I knew you were a right fit when I saw that. It was like you were on some island in like the Pacific where it was a video about people going to war and they would come back, like their war trophy of victory was they would come back with their enemy's poop, which is fucking badass. That I think is like the funniest shit. To come back and just be like, as a chief, you just pull out a napkin with a turd on it, and be like,
it's impressive.
It's
like the pearl from the clam. You know, it's
absolutely the pearl from the clam. That's such a
part.
Funny story too. And the worst part about that stuff is you piss people off because they don't want you to come to their country and be like, "Would you like to hear a funny story from here?" You know. These warriors used to collect their enemy's shit as a trophy to rub it in the other clan. And they'd only fight these wars until like one dude died. That was it. And then it was over. That dude died. Let's look for the shit. Then we're going to have a big fiesta where we bring it. And we're just going to show it off to their friends and family and be like,
our party smells like
Nobody
shit.
else does that. Why are they embarrassed about it?
Nobody else does that.
Yeah, that's cool.
I mean, I and this is how a lot of people get mad at me, but I understand a lot of this stuff. Like, I totally understand where it's coming from. You guys are having these small scale clan conflicts like every other week for no reason. And maybe a guy dies, maybe they don't. What's the goddamn point? You know, there's no point. You know, this is about some bullshit. There's no land ownership. So you're just kind of like squabbling for squabbler's sake. There's no real reason. They're just doing it, and so they've just come up with a trophy, and that trophy just so happens.
It's like a cool like sign of like they died. They pooped their pants when they died.
Yeah,
and now I've got their death poop. And
I've got your death poop right here. I mean, I could have taken your nose,
your
ear,
head, or
whatever, but no. And then because of that, you get an arms race.
If you were like a warrior back then, and you had like Crohn's disease,
you'd be king.
Yeah, you'd be king. There's nobody collecting my poop unless you had a Ziploc bag, which they did.
Yeah, good fucking luck.
Back then. Yeah, good fucking luck.
Yeah,
I grabbed this shit. Trust me, guys, but it went through my fingers because it was nothing but liquid. Yeah, I would absolutely be king. But
so I
have Crohn's disease, guys. That's not me.
They have a 4-day enema type situation where they eat raw rat to like inspire horrific diarrhea. They call it something like the meal of smoke or something. So imagine like actually harming yourself, like really harming yourself. 4 days of not just eating, but purging everything you can so that, and like you're going to fight this battle. You're obviously going to be way weaker. You probably could have won if you hadn't done 4 days of fucking fasting, enemaing. And so they do this, and then at the end of it, they fight. And the whole reason for that 4 days was just if you die, you don't shit. And so it's an arms race now. It's like you got to find the shit. So they start cutting them open, and they start like going to the tops of the intestines and stuff, just because you got to get it, because it's important. You know?
I didn't realize they were that active for poop hunting. I
thought well, because
they would kill
the
someone in hope.
Yeah, it originated with the obvious: you shit yourself when you die, and then it just step by step. I'm not going to shit myself. And then, yes, you goddamn are. And then, just slowly until.
I wonder who the first guy was that was like, he's not doing it. We got to cut him open. We got to get this shit out of there. That's a bold step to make forward. Like, I'm going to mutilate this corpse just to get the shit.
Put this piece of food through his body, his dead body, and it'll
well,
count.
There's the island right next to there, Chook. And there, which a bunch of people, even this Christian pastor or something, came and tried to attack me for it, because nobody knows this history anymore, because those Christian pastors fucking taught them everything else and said they couldn't remember it.
Yeah.
But back in the day, when someone died, when a husband died, women would hang their body from the rafters of the house, and the dripping, disgusting stuff that came out of them, they would drink it so they would feel the pain of their dead relative. Imagine.
I wouldn't hate if my family did that, because
I mean, that was the respect.
Yeah, it's like this little like, here's simulating pregnancy. Now you get it.
Yeah.
It's like making my family like, this sucked dying. Here. Follow me very
nibble
quickly.
A little finger, babe. And that is so wild to do, but at the same time, like,
where was this at?
Truk Lagoon. It's in Micronesia. It's like southeast of Guam. About a couple hours.
Where do you do most of your traveling? It seems like you spend a lot of time in like Southeast Asia.
Honestly, anywhere.
Worldwide? Okay.
Mostly Japan because I speak Japanese, so it's really easy for me to get around there. So I end up probably doing more Japanese seasons than anywhere else. But it's mostly like time of year, weather, cost, political stability, all these things matter. So I usually change like 2 months before I leave where I'm going to go, just because you never know. Like stuff happens. Typhoon comes, earthquake, all that stuff. That war.
Has there ever been a place that you had high hopes for, and then you show up and you're like, oh, this actually fucking stinks? Or maybe like
you didn't get the story you wanted,
like
or
lit
didn't
down,
get to meet
so to speak.
I mean, I've been let down by people, but I think places is more about you. Everything could be cool. Everything could be cool. It's more like how you experience it. I'm always let down by places that are hyped beforehand. And I actually think it's so bullshit. Like you go to, I did a video on it that also didn't get viewed a lot, but you go to a place like Malta and they've got this arch that goes out into the water and every tourist goes there. Fantastic. Arch in the water, whatever. Fuck. Everybody goes there because that's where the buses go. When you're a tourist and you get on the bus and you go there, that arch dropped into the water in 2017. It's not even there. Buses all still go.
Oh.
Why?
Picture an arch here.
Because that's what they sold. And so now they're trying to like digitally add the arch back with an app. Or there was this Russian businessman who wanted to like build a metal version of what the arch once was. It's like, just get the fuck over it.
Yeah.
That was a tourist spot that people came to see. But 15 minutes away, not even 7 minutes away drive, is an identical arch. Maybe 6 people there. Why? Because you're not going to see the arch. You went to go see this postcard picture that doesn't exist. You go to see the Eiffel Tower. It's like, bro, you've seen the Eiffel Tower. You know what it looks like. There's nothing special about going to see it except the like personal, I went to go see the Eiffel Tower comment. But I bet the pictures that you take of that are way worse than the ones you could just quickly Google online.
Yeah.
You've seen it so much better than it is. And they ruin places because it's like hyped about, oh my God, that thing. It's like, that thing's not the good part, man. The good part's walking around and meeting some guy named Jorge. And then you go to his house and you guys chat over beers about what it's like living in fucking Guatemala City or God knows what. That's the fun part to me. And the Eiffel Tower's cool. You look at it, you're like, hey, bro, I know what you are. Yeah, that's super big or whatever. But like, is Times Square the best part of New York? If you were showing someone New York, you're like, man, let's go. Fucking jump down to Times Square. It's
the worst part, maybe.
But like, you got to go see it. Like if you go there, so it's like that.
It's true.
That double-sided thing.
There's a lot of that. Like, you're in this place. Well, I have to see the place that everyone talks about.
For sure. And no disrespect to that. That's totally what you got to do.
But
that's
sure
like a vacation.
There's so many cooler spots.
Yeah. And when you go to somewhere like Somaliland, you can't ever think about that. Like, you can't be like, oh man, I'm here to see the site. I went to see a site.
Do they even have museums in Somaliland?
Yeah, pretty much everywhere has the trappings of a state. Pretty much everywhere you go on Earth. It's just like, how maintained is stuff? What type of stuff do they have?
Is Somaliland as close as you have gotten to like total anarchy, or?
Somaliland is probably better for that than Ethiopia is, actually. Somaliland is such an enclave, such a fortress city, really. Yeah. I mean, it's a fortress city, which is how Somalia really works. Like, there's the countryside, and then there's the fortress city. Actually, let me tell a stupid story from Somalia, because it fucking reminded me. So after I kick out Eric, my wife and I, we want to go see this site, the one site that Somaliland really has, which are these cave paintings. And it's not really a cave, it's like a rock overhang, but it's so dry there that nothing disappears. So you have these, I can't remember off the top of my head how old. I'm going to say super fucking old, back in those days type old.
Yeah.
And it's, the first shit from Somalia, like the oldest stuff. And it's really cool. It's a lot of it. It's like, if this were in France, it'd get 1 million viewers, 1 million visitors a year. It's like really cool thing. But you have to leave the fortress city to go to it. And you're not allowed to leave the fortress city of Hargeisa without either you've signed some insurance slips saying you accept the risk of going to the terror zone, which is like a whole bureaucratic thing that I didn't want to do, or you hire a policeman, which is a gunman. They are no different than a gang of men who are high with AKs. And I don't know this for a fact, I think they're all only given one bullet because an AK is worth, I think, like 2 times the amount as a bullet. Like if you wanted to buy one, it's like $10 for the AK and like $5 per bullet. So they have like one bullet. They're not, there's no defensiveness to this. You know, you better. And in East Africa, the drug of choice, especially in Somalia, there's only one drug there, and it's called Chat or Khat, depending on if you're in Ethiopia or Somalia. And Chat is coca leaf. It's like having 6 espressos all at once. It's not meth, but it's like you're hyped, you're hopped up a bit. Yeah. You know, back in the day, you could see why this would be a drug. You know, it's just a little wired, a little jittery, and everybody's chewing it. 95% of men are chewing it all day, every day. And you chew it from morning until night all the time. So you're super high. But Somaliland is not like Somalia in that a lot of Somalilanders moved to foreign countries like Australia, England, Canada, US, and then moved back after the Civil War ended. So they've got like 10 years of Western life. And they're coming back with a very different culture. So there's like 2 Somalilanders. You've got your guys who are born, raised, and never left Somaliland. Then you've got your guys who came back. And my driver who's taken me out to this cave painting, he's a Minnesota Somali. So he's like come back from America after there for 15 years. And he fucking hates this drug. He just doesn't allow it in his vehicle. And the cop who we hired refuses not to eat the drug. And so they're having this screaming match in the front seat. And in Somali, obviously, and I don't understand what's going on, but we're driving out of the city and Buddy is just screaming and they're screaming. And the Somali language, often they yell. So like, you don't know that they're mad necessarily just because they're heated. That's kind of how the language works. So we're kind of trying to vibe. Like, are these dudes actually like screaming at each other? Cause Buddy's got an AK and we're going 25 miles an hour down the highway, or highway, whatever counts as a highway there. And the guy with the AK kicks open his door and just fucking tuck and rolls right onto the road. 25 miles an hour, just tucks and rolls. And the door slams shut in the wind. I'm like, and the Somali
one bullet to shoot that.
Yeah. The Minnesotan guy turns around and he goes, "No problem." Oh. I was like, well, yeah, I mean, kind of a problem, like a small problem, like number of problems immediately coming to mind. Like, what were you guys talking about? Why did he choose? It was more important to leave this car in a tuck and roll with a gun than just wait till you pulled over,
About to go in the nightmare zone.
Oh, yeah, shit. And my wife and I are like, like we're locked in. What am I going to do? We're maybe 20 seconds from the first checkpoint of, I think it's 3 checkpoints we got to go through to get out of this city. He's like, no problem.
He didn't wait till the checkpoint to open up the door and walk out.
No, he just rolled.
Had to have been.
Which, I mean, it was so insane. Yeah. And like, there's not much you can do in that situation, but roll with it. Pun, obviously not intended. And so we get to that first checkpoint, and I still don't know what's happened because it's been not enough time before that happened to when we get to the checkpoint. And we get to the checkpoint. Buddy pulls out like 45 cents in local Somaliland pounds or whatever, and we move on to the second checkpoint. And then he goes, he just wanted to chew Khat all day. So the guy was just like, "You're not allowed to chew Khat in my car." And Buddy's response to that was just roll, just tuck and roll. So that guy's gone. I no longer have the gunman, which I'm not really that worried about, frankly, even though like you have to hire a gunman to leave the city for a reason, because there is no way this man would protect me. Like he probably has 1 bullet if he does. And like this man, if anything, he's a threat. If anything, he's a threat. Like there's nothing about him that makes me feel safe. So I'm kind of happy he's gone, but we get to the second and third checkpoints, and this toothless police officer, he's probably 35 years old, looks 70, jumps into the back seat. He's missing every important tooth. Like he's got a couple of stragglers in the back there, but every important tooth is gone. But he's a smiler, like a natural big old grinner, which is awesome. He's amazing. I love him. The moment he sits in our vehicle, I'm just like, who are you? Big fan. And he wants us to bribe his boss to get through the next checkpoint with that drug. So we turn around, we go back into town a little bit. We go to like a kissing booth, wooden booth. You know what I mean? Like the person standing behind that tiny little wooden shack, and she just pulls out this fucking monster torso-size sack of this stuff, and I give her, I don't know, $5 or something, which is an obscene amount. It's like a week's worth or God knows what. And I bring it back to this cop, and his grin is like up to here, but there's no teeth, and like just looking at it, you're laughing. You know, he's a funny man, and he knows it. And you know, so I'm having that funny moment with him. He's holding the bag like a child with cotton candy at a fucking baseball game, and so we get to his boss, and he jumps out again. You know, this little kid bounce of like, "Ooh, I got it!" And his boss does that little like, "Yeah!" And we lift the go through bar, and we go through. And like a week later, I'm chatting with my buddy, and I go, "Oh fuck! That we bribed the cops in Somalia with drugs." So we could go to a terrorist area. Like at the time, these were all just one by one steps that made perfect sense. Like, of course, that's what you have to do to get past the next checkpoint. But like as a sentence, very funny.
Well,
very
funny. The driver's like, you cannot chew that shit in here, but I'll transport like a big ass bag of it.
I'll the run cops. It. No less.
It's like, well, this guy doesn't have any teeth. He's not going to chew on it. So this guy's cool. He can stay in the car. Bring as much as you want.
But seriously, though,
I've
we made that.
Did you ever try any of that cut?
Yeah.
Any good?
We did it. No. It's like you had too many espressos.
Oh, okay.
Perfect description. You had one too many espresso.
Okay.
And it's that like internal jitter.
Yeah.
Oh yeah.
What about that beetle nut?
Yeah, beetle nut. Beetle nut is more disgusting to me just because of what it does to your teeth. But it's kind of the same.
Okay.
In terms of what you're getting from it.
Yeah.
Low level upper, basically.
Gotcha. I watched
that beetle nut, man, that's fucking disgusting.
Well, that's
disgusting. There's a bunch of countries. If you go look on the ground where an average person would be walking on a sidewalk, for example, and then look to where if you spat to the left or right, that spit would go. And in a lot of countries, you'll just see a red line going down the sidewalk there because the beetle nut spit stains the ground.
Teeth are very gross. I've never
seen this. Unreal gross.
I saw that video you did on the Marshall Islands, and you were talking about beetle nut. I'm kind of on a little journey right now. I'm looking for basically any legal substance that I could try. That's like beetle nut's not an illicit substance in the U.S. or whatever, so you can't.
No, I know.
I've been trying kava recently.
Yeah, so kava's all right too.
Kava's
that's from the same spot.
Yeah, from the same spot. So I was like, hey, maybe they're onto something. Beetle nut, maybe, but
dude, don't say it 3 times.
Yeah, but then in that video, you were like,
your teeth turn red if you say it 3 times.
In that video, they have like boats of Coke wash up on the Marshall Islands.
Oh, not just the Marshall Islands. Every Pacific island. I just chose the Marshalls. That's true in every major Pacific island. You go to Vanuatu, Samoa, Fiji. It doesn't matter. You're getting hundreds of kilos of cocaine washing up every year on every island. So Coke's just
cheap there? That's kind of
it's
awesome.
Not just cheap. It's free.
Oh,
I could have got you $1,000 worth of Coke for 50 cents, maybe $2, maybe. If you knew the guy, free.
Because they don't chance of leaving and getting into the U.S. probably, but
I mean, probably not. But it's not worth it for me to figure it out. But when I was there, I went and talked to a guy who was doing I don't even want to say who he is, but I talked to a guy there who's very obviously in the know, and he told me I was there in March, I think, might have been a little later, and he told me he knew of 6 boats that had arrived that year already.
Really?
Chalked to the rafters. And we're talking little dinghies, but we're talking 200 kilos to 500 kilos per boat.
Why did they get washed up there? Where are they going?
So crossing the Pacific in a dinghy from South America to Asia.
Oh, they're
you sometimes get just blown off.
Okay.
Yeah. So a lot of guys just get
Asia
killed. And these are called ghost ships because either buddy bails and swims to shore before it ever gets there on one of the smaller islands, or dies, which is very common, just in a swell. They're in a dinghy crossing the Pacific. We're talking a boat you wouldn't even really want to take across my river here, and it's got 200 kilos weighing it down, full of coke. So these boats don't make it, like fairly not often, but if you get one boat to Australia with 200 pounds of coke or 200 kilos of coke from South America, you could lose 10 ships and still make money. It's so expensive over in Asia and Australia that it's like obscenely different.
How expensive are boats in South America that they don't just get a nicer boat?
I think a nicer boat. I think the whole point is going under the radar, because you need to arrive without customs noticing you.
Gotcha. Well, then I would spend even more money and get a submarine.
Was Lebanese cedar.
Yeah.
Just watched that video earlier.
Flexible mast and everything.
No, absolutely
protects it from rot. So.
Hey, wait to tighten her all back together there. No, but that's wild. And that happened in the Azores too. So that's the second time I made that video, because I was in the Azores and it happened over there, and it fucked up their society, because now they're all addicted to the downstream effects of that coke showing up. But like, they just had hundreds of kilos show up. They had something like 1.5 grams per person on the island show up one day.
What?
And like, the stories from that time, people were lining soccer fields, that white, that like white on the soccer field, the lines, they were just doing it in coke, because they had so much coke.
Jesus.
Insane amount. Because these are small islands, man. 500 kilos on a small island is you got
through a game, you might take a little stop at the line.
Yeah, you took a dive. Ooh, buddy's coming up hot,
covered in the face. Holy shit.
Yeah. No, and it wasn't, criminals doing it. Nobody had any experience with it. It's farmers and just normal everybody, because it's free basically. And it's just getting flooded onto everybody. And nobody knew how to stop it, because like the police had no reference point for coke addiction or drug dealing. It's just like, it was such a tiny little thing. Whereas in the Marshalls and a lot of the Pacific Islands, they just don't use it. So it just rots. Like, well,
why would you when you got a beetle nut or whatever?
Yeah, if anything, they do crack, which is odd.
Really?
But I don't know why. But
it's classier. You get a little glass pipe and everything.
Yeah.
You look a little.
It really fixes up the visage,
Yeah. You look like Humphrey Bogart with that glass pipe. It's very classy.
Cocaine is for the classless.
Why are you sampling psychedelics or drugs?
A great question.
What's your goal?
Because
seemingly to become addicted to something.
I'm seeking addiction for something.
Trying to ruin my life.
I don't think it's like in a social experiment or anything. I think he's.
Yeah, I just wanted to try. Because
fair enough. Gotta know.
Yeah, I've been enjoying some stuff, and then I've been not enjoying other things. I think I did most of my life until about 28 completely scot-free clean of everything.
Oh, really?
Yeah, I never really drank. I never smoked. Nothing like that until about 28 when I had my first kid. And then parenthood, well, that'll keep you from being sober real quick.
Yeah.
And then get a little bit of psychedelics in there, maybe, and that kind of opens the door.
So you're going nun to prostitute here. Huh?
Yep, exactly. Yeah. And
fair enough.
I'm just testing them out. I don't plan on ruining my life. But
reverse pretty woman. Yeah, absolutely.
I would like to become.
Yeah, it's one of those '90s like girl becomes hot movies. Just a 30s reversal.
The exact reverse. Yeah.
Got it.
Me personally, I liked mushrooms. I sort of did the opposite. I sort of calmed down once I hit my 30s a bit. But
that's
when I was
usually
in my 20s,
what people do.
I was real open to. I guess I don't really like hard drugs that I think I'm gonna enjoy. Yeah. Like I wouldn't do coke because I'm worried I'd like it.
Yeah.
I don't want to like it.
That's fair.
It's going to ruin me,
It's a bad thing about most of those is, it's like, they're doing them a lot because it rocks. It's really fun.
That's actually, I do have lines. I'm not going to do like heroin or opioids or anything because you hear from people, they're like, it's literally the best feeling in your life.
Exactly.
And I go,
right? How
I'm
can
good.
you chase
I'm good
that
on
dragon,
that.
right?
Yeah.
Yeah. And I mean, I understand it because like that must be literally the chemical perfection, what your brain wants. But you got to know that, like, I've seen Train Spotting. I've seen, what's the other one? Requiem for a Dream, you know? Like, I saw that when I was 13 and I would never do heroin after Requiem for a Dream. That was the real click for me. It's like, some drugs
that was
not to be touched.
A bad story for you.
Yeah. I really wanted to do the ass to ass, but the other two stories were, they worked
I was
out
like, if I
me.
do enough heroin, maybe Jennifer Connelly will be my girlfriend. Even for but a moment. If I have to lose my arm at the end, I don't give a fuck.
Vomiting in that vat of prisoner.
Yeah. No, that movie was 13. Horrifying to me. It was his mom's story where she like...
His mom's story.
Sure. Where she's
Sarah
on some
Goldfarb,
sort of
man.
like pills or something. She's on like speed or something like that.
Yeah.
And it's like doctor prescribed and it's just ruining your life.
Mother's little helper, right?
That's, because I have a lot of people in my family that are like that, where they're like, I got it from the doctor. It's fine. Mm-hmm. I'm like, you're insane. You don't realize how much you're dependent on this.
Yeah.
Just because it came from a doctor doesn't mean it's okay.
Just opium. Like, all you're taking is just opium. It's actually refined opium to make it more addictive.
Awesome.
So you've taken the bad opium. Yeah. You know? It's like being like, I won't eat that tomato, but I'd really like some, the craft version of whatever they've decided a tomato could become.
Yeah.
But I mean, as long as you choose the drug properly, and I think if you go in with the right attitude, that's a lot of drugs too, is like, if you go in scared of mushrooms, like it's going to suck. That trip is going to suck because you're just scared the whole time. It just amps up whatever emotion you've got going on. So if you're going in like chill and with your friends, it's probably going to be all right.
Have you ever been in one of these dangerous countries and then decided to take some local?
No, I try to be really on my guard. Like, for example, I was just interrogated by the Lebanese, I guess you call them the FBI. They call them the ISF. For like 5 days. It was very rough interrogation. The worst I've ever had it by far in terms of danger to my freedom and health and life and all that stuff. And at one point, like, I got house arrested back into my hotel while they were checking 14 years of texts and Google searches and all this stuff to then go through the most horrendous interrogation you could ever imagine, because now it's like 14 years of explaining jokes you've made to a very serious 78-year-old Lebanese judge. And
they went through your Google searches.
And your Google searches. And I've Google searched so many dumb things. I want to know, and I'm curious, man. And I'm not ashamed of stupid questions, but I had like 140 texts and searches.
How to kill a Lebanese person. Man, Lebanese kill spots on their body. Unique to them. I was curious.
I just wanted to know. Best place to spy in Beirut. Oh yeah, man. So that was wild. But then I'm in my hotel room and I'm like house arrested for whatever 3 days, waiting for them to rip apart all my stuff and read through it and analyze it and all that. And I'm like, I should drink. Obviously. Like that's what my body's telling me, is a couple beers would set me a little bit more right here. But I was just thinking, like, they're gonna kick in the door at some point. And if I'm 4 beers deep when they kick in the door, I will not be on my game when they take me in for this next interrogation, and I really need to be on my game. And so I was just sitting in this hotel room with nothing, couldn't leave. I watched RoboCop 3 in Arabic back to back.
Did they edit it at all?
It was better the second time, man.
Oh, was it?
Honestly, like the first time I didn't really get it. The second time was like we had an understanding.
You have a lot more self-discipline than me, which isn't really that much to gloat about. I think everybody has a little bit more self-discipline than me.
Seeking addiction.
Yeah, but being, knowing that, hey, they're gonna kick in the door. 4 beers isn't good. When you were talking earlier about standing guard with a knife for 3 hours, I would have been there 9 minutes maybe before I go like, I'm gonna lay on the bed and rest the knife on my belly and try to keep my eyes open.
You'd be amazed what adrenaline does to your thought process.
Oh, really?
Like a real gun in the face, it's not you anymore. The person standing there is a baser version of you that you have probably not experienced a lot of. And I think that's a real test.
I've had a real sheltered life. I don't even think I've ever had adrenaline. I don't know if my body can create it.
They use the word sheltered so negatively, and I think that's fucking stupid because, like, what is the one thing on, like, Maslow's hierarchy of needs that's, like, more important than every other thing? It's like, be sheltered, right? Like, that's what you're supposed to do. You can self-actualize on top of it, but saying you're sheltered like it's a negative thing to me is like saying McDonald's sucks because now all of a sudden we have access to cheap burgers anytime we want. It's like, man, go back 200 years and bitch about that. Like, people are not going to be too keen on your it's sick. It's sick to be living it.
Hey, dude,
in one spot.
You're talking to an inside dog. I'm not. There's no shame in that. I like it.
I don't think there's anything wrong with that at all. And
actually, I take that back. I have had an adrenaline spike recently. I tried going down my carpeted stairs with socks, and about halfway through, I did that slip, and I grabbed the banister. And I thought, am I having a heart attack? No, I'm too young for that. That has to be adrenaline. And then my left arm started hurting really bad.
Came out.
Yeah. And I was like, that's what adrenaline's like. I felt like it. Like a warrior.
After you took a six of cocaine to the dome, right?
Yeah.
Man, my heart's going really fast. I wonder if this is adrenaline or...
TwitchCon challenge. If you see Sam at TwitchCon, try to get his adrenaline going. Try to get him in a fear state.
Going right to the forehead.
See if we can pull out that primal side of him.
No, I think that when I tell stories, people imagine it's like more than them doing their thing. It's not. You lived an equal amount of life. You have different experiences that I don't have, that are not, it just sounds like, ooh, on paper, he did that thing. Bro, most of what I do sucks. It sucks to experience it. It sucks to be there. There's nothing like quote unquote fun about it. You have to love that stuff. And it's just got to be what you do to drive yourself. It's not good. It's not like, oh man,
that's what's called. Have you ever heard of the different types of fun?
No.
It's called there's type 1 fun and type 2 fun. What you're doing is type 2 fun. Type 1 fun is something that's fun when you're doing it. And you're like, oh, that's fun. Type 2 fun is something that is horrific in the experience and maybe not fun. Maybe it's stress inducing. And then afterwards you look back on it fondly because it was a novel experience. Yeah. And I think those are important to have. For example, Poob, going hiking in Idaho. There was definitely some moments of that where I was like, am I going to die out here? Am I okay? Am I okay? And then looking back on it, I look back on it fondly.
I was having type 1 fun until you took the shrooms and became like a witch. And I was having type 2 fun.
Yeah. When you looked over and I was walking on all fours and growling.
That's all I could think about when you were saying like whatever mood you're in. Because I was like, oh, look at the beautiful trees. And I'm having like, oh, I'm one with nature. And then Sam's in the tent going like, It can quickly pull you into that world if you're...
Oh, for sure. Yeah. Oh, yeah, man. Mushrooms is just like, feed me an input. I'm going to run with it,
Yeah.
It's
I know that now. Okay, nobody told me that beforehand.
Oh, yeah. So I went to university in New Brunswick in like northeast of Maine, which is like our East Coast. It's our poor, depopulated part of Canada, a North Dakota or something like that for us. Great place, though. Everybody's super chill. Nobody expects to be somebody someday, so they're not fucking hoity-toity city people. And I really love it out there. But you could never... There's no jobs or anything like that. It's poverty-stricken, middle of nowhere. But they grow these types of mushrooms on the cow shit called Liberty Bells, something like that. Liberty Caps, I think.
Liberty.
And I've never seen them anywhere else. And they're not physical. They're entirely mental. And you are 100% in control of the high. So like you can change the color of the wall. You can start rippling the floors, like texture. But you could have a perfectly normal conversation with your boss because you're not there. You're 100% like Cubenzas for me are like hype. It's like they make me want to run. They make me want to like climb a tree or something. These guys are just entirely mental. And it was awesome. And I've never seen those anywhere else.
Shit now.
Yeah. I mean, it was really cool. So when I was in
Sounds like
university,
the perfect. Sure. Oh, gone.
yeah, it's perfect. Like it really was. And I know if you go to the Netherlands, they do it with not mushrooms anymore because they illegalized those. So they just turned it into what's the other one, truffles or whatever. But you can go into a store, and you can do this in Canada now because we're like half legal with mushrooms. You can go in a store and buy the mushroom, and it'll tell you like what type it is to buy it, and it'll give you like that specific experience. And I haven't done that personally yet because I'm too old for this shit. But when I was young, those were like, they weren't mushrooms. It was a whole different drug. If they weren't both the same physical item, you would never call them the same type of drug. It's like drinking and weed. They're dramatically different effects. But that was so cool. I had a great time with it. And what I like about mushrooms is I don't want to do it the next day. I don't wake up and I'm like, let's do mushrooms again. No, it's months before I'm feeling
it's definitely something you spread out 4 times a year, maybe. Something like that. Actually, people that do them pretty consistently, you wonder about them a little bit. It's like a weekly trip. It's like, what's going on, dude? Like, what are you running from? Where reality is that boring to you?
Sad.
Yeah.
My buddy Tyler, he could eat 12 grams of mushrooms.
Really?
Like I could take 1. And he would eat them a lot, but I think it's because he had some natural like barrier. He had some tolerance that he just, we fed him once like 6 grams of shake at the bottom of the bag, and he thought it was 1 gram, and Buddy could like, didn't even affect him. Like he was just like nothing. So he must have some chemical inside him that negates the mushroom or something, but he'd take them pretty often. And I think it's because he doesn't get the negative effects from it. Like whatever 8 hours of nervous hangover that you receive sitting there on your couch.
It freaks me out. Like, that's why the ones you're talking about from university sound so awesome, because I'm always like, okay, what if I get a phone call and it's like, hey, you have to go to the hospital right now. Your grandma's in the hospital.
Yeah.
Like, oh, fuck. Like, I couldn't talk to my family or,
so that's, you haven't felt the adrenaline. Adrenaline will sober you right up. If you get a big hit of adrenaline like that, you are back to sober. It's at least with drinking, I presume shrooms is probably pretty similar, but I've seen dudes go from blackout to like almost ready to be normal.
With alcohol, I've definitely had a couple times where I'm like, okay, I need to be like a person present because like, one of my friends is something very bad's happening. Shrooms, I guess I've never been in a situation like that. Like I've been scared. But I've never had to like pull myself. I bet you could sober up a lot because I know even if you're like really high from weed, it's like if you need to, you can kind of become a real person again. Most of the time.
For like 90 seconds.
Enough time to call 911 and then pass out or something. Help.
Solve the problem as you need to, right?
Get my gun out.
Get the camera out, take a little video. Back in university, those were different times. My body could handle more stuff. I could abuse myself in ways I can't do now. So just
how old are you?
Yeah, just old. Getting fucking old.
Okay.
Yeah. Old ass man. Oh, did you say how old?
Yeah, how old?
Oh, sorry. I thought you said getting old. Yeah, no, I'm 38, 39.
Oh, 30, okay. I asked it and then you got real quiet. I was like, oh shit, is that like asking a woman how old she was? Like,
no, like I mentioned, I can hear you guys at like 12% volume, so I'm just
gotcha.
I'm picking up what I pick up.
Yeah, no, that's not that old. I'm
no, it's 33. Not, but I'm on the Forehead podcast for a reason, right? Like,
yeah.
It's getting there, baby.
Yeah.
Time comes for us all.
Yeah, not you.
Your hair looks great.
Look at you, champ. With your
Well, I'm also.
You got Prince Charming hair from Shrek, except for it's brown.
I'm also 26. Like I hope I get a little bit more time before it all kicks in. Things go downhill.
14 over there. My God.
Give me.
You should have seen him the first day on this podcast. He had a little suit on. He had his little church boy haircut. Oh man. And then how the years have ravaged him so far. That's only been 4 years or something now.
No, the years do ravage, though. At 28, that's the little peak. 28 to 32, you're hitting this little fun crest, and then it's just like, man, my back fucking hurts. All the time. Didn't do anything. No reason.
We had a tree fall in the backyard, and I was going to cut it up, and then I decided I'm too much of a pussy to do that, so I hired somebody to cut it up. But I was like, leave the rounds here, because then I'll chop it into firewood. Mm-hmm. I live in Florida. We need firewood for these harsh winters. So I was out there yesterday chopping firewood, and my fucking lower back hurts so much today. I've been walking around like a hand on my lower back, like, oh, my little back.
Oh yeah.
No, I should stay in my little computer chair and just do my little.
Remain sheltered at all times, like there's an apocalypse out there. You know. Yeah.
I don't need firewood. What the fuck do I need that for?
What worries
you're
me
in Florida.
most?
What could you possibly?
Old people always talking about how much they have to pee, and like I've just always had to pee a lot. I have to pee again right now, and I've already peed once during this, and like I can't imagine being an old man and it being worse.
Yeah.
I don't know how it could get much worse because I basically pee once an hour.
You know what my grandfather would do?
Carrying around a briefcase full of your own urine.
Yeah. Oh, yeah. My grandfather had a jug.
That's actually
he had a piss jug. And then he put a skull and crossbones
on it. Classier.
Yeah, my buddy Kelly, slip it in. Before he passed, he was like 85 years old, and he walked around for the last 2 years of his life carrying a briefcase, like a 70s Willie Loman Death of a Salesman type, businessman briefcase, but full of his urine. And I always appreciated that.
I love someone trying to rob you.
Yeah.
What he got here, jewels?
How would he fill it? Was it just bottles or? Was it one big colostomy bag in there?
I never looked inside the briefcase, if I'm being honest with you. Just had a tube clearly going from his lower parts to a briefcase that he was carrying. Kind of like the nuclear football, the president, but full of an old man's piss.
That's awesome.
Yeah, it was awesome. He was a funny dude.
I was assuming colostomy bag then. So he went, instead of the colostomy bag strapped to the thigh, he probably had like a jumbo one.
Yeah, it was a big briefcase. He definitely had a jumbo.
Handcuffs going to the briefcase look very important. Have the little wire going through the handcuffs at the sleeve.
Two different men have to put their thumbprint on to open it up. Yeah.
Oh my God, it's just piss.
Well, if it's a colostomy bag, if someone takes the briefcase and runs with it, it's gonna pull his catheter out. So I would
absolutely. He's in a rough run.
It would absolutely.
Don't steal that.
I would be protective of that.
Yeah, nobody's winning from that moment. Yeah.
That guy was so funny. Gold.
I live on this island with 120 families it's almost a commune, but nobody's communist. But at the same time, everybody volunteers to maintain the paths and the all that stuff. Yeah. So it's community led, community run little island.
Commies.
And this guy was one of those dudes on that island. So he's one of my neighbors, I guess, but he's just this, he's an 85 funny-year-old man. And he had the funniest stories that he'd drop on you. He came up and he told me that his brother was in a minstrel show when they were kids. And I'm like, and I start doing the math.
Yeah, how old are you?
Older brother? And he goes, no, younger brother. I was like, well, those were illegal 12 years before you were born, buddy. Where was he doing those? And he's just from this small town in Ontario where I suppose up until the 30s, minstrel shows were just getting thrown around. And he threw that on the table to me the way you'd say you have brown eyes, just a casual. He had no clue that would have been a wrong thing to do or say. Just, 30s, 40s. I think it was legalized in the 10s or something.
My little baby brother.
Yeah. Little baby brother.
Oh, I'm looking it up. A minstrel show is, they wear blackface.
It's just blackface.
Yeah.
Blackface. Yeah. Okay. But done in Red a mouse. Deliberately insulting way. Gotcha. It's not just blackface. It's the way that blackface is insulting.
Yeah.
It's meant to be insulting.
Gotcha.
And so to admit doing that in, 2022 or whatever. 30 years after it was not only unacceptable but illegal,
but made federally illegal. Yeah.
You live in the countryside when
You're that old, it's just whatever.
Yeah, exactly, right? You're fucking carrying around a briefcase of your piss. I'm not taking this that seriously.
Look at me. Look at
me. He used to come down and tell me about Hee Haw reruns. I don't know if you know Hee Haw, the TV show.
No.
It's a 50s comedy show, but he would just come down and recount to me the jokes from Hee Haw on the rerun last night for 20 minutes.
They were always the same. Of Hee Haw?
That was awesome. This guy would just spit them at me.
Set the stage.
Yeah.
Go through the whole episode, start to finish.
Yeah, his favorite episode, there's this woman who sits on like a fake leather chair and it makes a fake farting noise and all the guys accuse her of farting. He probably recounted that story to me 24 times. I loved it every time.
It's hilarious.
You know where it's going.
Yeah.
You know? Yeah. It's cool to have a community where you have like neighbors who you know who are of a completely different lifestyle, generation, and point of view as you, because you have to put up with them. We all get, cool. This island requires everybody. But that guy is like zero crossover with me in anything. Our Venn diagrams aren't even in the same room.
It sounds like those are the kinds of people you love to meet, though.
Absolutely.
Yeah, I mean, why would you want to meet a bunch of people that are like yourself? You know?
Yeah, I don't like me. Why would I want another me in the room? It seems
always
awful.
wanted a twin, but
gotta fuck something, right?
Sentiment, yeah. We know how we like it.
Yeah.
Yeah. If your twin showed up from the future and he's like, bro, we're into it now. How long before he convinces you that you're into it now, you know? I mean, it's you.
Yeah.
Yeah. He's from the future.
Be on the pretty same page.
Yeah, how could he be wrong?
He would show up and go, I've got news from the... And I go, oh. Stop. I don't care when you're from.
You're the third this week.
Yeah. Well, whatever you're saying. I'm going to go pee really quick.
I'm about to pop. Can we do a pee break real quick? Oh. Look at us all back at the same time.
What time?
I've been here for like an hour. You guys got weak streams. You got to work on your power. You know, you got to flex that diaphragm and just, you know,
sandblast that porcelain. Hell yeah! No,
a lot in the bathroom.
I'm an inside dog. I don't tense a muscle. I let it dribble out. Okay. Any amount of strain, not good in my life.
Yeah. No,
I want you to check in on me in a year, and I want to look like Jabba the Hutt. Just at my computer. This guy hasn't moved a muscle.
Yeah, what's that guy in Dune who like sits in the fat guy in the bath there?
Yeah.
Baron
dude.
Yeah, the Baron. Yeah.
In the future, when we have the ability to have little force fields and float around, that's the first thing I'm getting. It's his little floaty force field.
They made cool. Wall-E look so bad. It's like, come on, bro. What an ideal.
So good.
What an ideal. Where's my pod?
Yeah.
Imagine
walking
getting
like a
the
chump.
warrior poop out of that guy.
Yeah.
What a trophy.
You know, it's all collected in that little back pocket of the pod.
That guy doesn't shit. No way.
Have you done a video on like cannibalism yet? Have you? There's still some people out there that practice it.
Probably. I haven't done any. I try not to do anything that's still happening for the most part if I can.
Okay.
For a number of reasons, because I don't want to be a journalist, and it's so hard not to cross over into journalism. Yeah. You know, it's hard not to be a vlogger doing what I do, and it's hard not to be a journalist doing what I do. And I don't want to be either of those things. So you sort of got to toe the line between the both of them. And my way of solving that is by trying to focus on things that aren't currently happening, or they're so patternistic that me telling you about it happening over there, all you're thinking about is yourself at home. Like, you don't actually care that it's happening over there. It's just like, wow, humans do that everywhere, or whatever. Which is kind of the goal of my series, is just this. Humans are so base. We're all the same. Culture changes us. And if I used to teach kindergarten just to get by when I was in Asia, and what I learned is that it's like 4 or 5 years old, culture changes you and you start to develop like a difference. But before that, I don't care what country you're in, that kid's the same. They're all just the same. Like this little moldable little item that can grow up to be anything. And once you start hitting, I think it's like 4 or 5, in my personal experience, that's when you start to schism and you start to become like more as your nation wants you to be, or your culture wants you to be.
I have a 6-year-old daughter, and just yesterday she came home with she's like, Dad, today's September 11th. We should never forget this day. And she had like a piece of paper she had drawn with the fucking Twin Towers on it and stuff that her class had done. And I guess they're teaching it as like, they don't teach them that fucking planes wrecked those buildings or anything. No. They just tell them that you shouldn't forget this. And
forget what?
And I was like, what is September 11th? She's like, it's like, you never forget it. The towers.
Yeah.
And I'm like, she's just learning shit, like whatever the fuck they throw at her.
She's just getting prompted.
I feel like
info.
Now would be the time where I should insert some random shit into her life. That's not true.
Absolutely.
But just mold her mind.
One word, make her pronounce it really annoying. You know? Choose one word, make it funny.
Yeah.
She's going to be saying that her whole life. Like my niece, who's kind of like my daughter, I take care of her a great deal. She's just turned 9. And God, the way she says certain words, because she was born in China, raised by a Chinese mother, came over and learned English at like 5 years old. She says a number of words exactly like her mother's failed English version because she lives at home with this woman. She hasn't yet learned that that's not how it's said outside of her. But you can hear the words and you can immediately tell how her mother messes up those words just from her version of how she said that word, even though she's lived in our society for, 4 years or something with us speaking English. That's the reference point. So that's the one that she uses, which is really interesting to see. The development of the brain. Like you say, at 6, she doesn't know what September 11th is, but it's being inputted into a part of, segment of the brain. And it'll take her entire life before she has to rethink that thought that's been put in there.
Yeah. You can really mold them to your will.
Really, though?
Yeah.
Like, truly.
You can make an entire fake accent for them to have their whole life.
The problem is they get sent to daycare, and all their daycare teachers are Southern older black ladies, and so it's just funny to hear a 3-year-old be like, "Ooh, child," like, "Ooh, sweetheart." Yeah,
for sure.
They just talk like little black ladies, which is funny to me. But
I knew an American guy who grew up in Japan, and his English accent isn't quite Japanese, but it's so obviously Japanese inspired. Like, it's got these very obvious undertones every time he says something in English. And you're like, man, like, I know that both of your parents speak English. I know you spoke this at home, but he just picked it up somewhere along the line that's how you frame that. Like, my accent's completely fake. For example, I grew up in Texas, but you don't hear a lot of Texas in my accent. There's some words like the way I say Texas is a little bit more localized than it would be Ontario.
Yeah.
But I also don't really have an Ontario accent. I do some words up here, like house, get out of the house. That's fairly Canadiana style. But, and then I went to New Brunswick, where I went to university. So I use a lot of New Brunswickisms in my speech. And every time someone speaks to me, they can't figure out what my accent is supposed to be, because it's just this amalgam of all these other ones.
Yeah.
But, yeah. And it makes it really easy for me to speak to second language English speakers, because I think that's like innate to me, because I've been doing it my whole life. My wife's 4th language English speaker, and I've lived abroad more than half my life in a place that doesn't speak English as a first language. So to me, it's just like a natural way of
how many languages
being understood. What's that?
How many languages do you know?
Fluently, just English, but I can converse in German, Spanish, and Japanese to the point of
getting around,
getting by
life.
Yeah.
Like I couldn't do this podcast in it, but I could do a rough facsimile of what this is.
Okay.
Japanese is really hard, obviously, but German is basically just English where you're coughing the whole time.
Yeah.
German's so easy to learn if you know English as a base language. You can learn it fast.
I've noticed reading German, you can kind of pick up what the hell stuff is.
For sure. Just
because it's,
they're
pretty
German
literal.
Books have you been reading? You do a lot of reading? German?
Yeah, the word Juden is so understandable. Like meine Mutter ist zu Hause, meine Mutter und meine Schwester ist in meiner Hause. It's like, my mother and my sister are in the house. It's a very obvious, like, it's so clear what that is. Same with Dutch. When you read it, it's like, that's English, just said funny.
Just a little silly.
Just a little silly, threw a little curveball in there.
Whimsical, yeah.
Yeah.
Curvy wooden shoes.
Can you imagine how much those shoes sucked? Giant wooden shoe? Like, what is that seems like the worst.
You'd have to wear a very thick sock for that to be comfortable at all.
Small sheep on my foot.
Yeah. I have a friend from Norway, and he sent me like a little care package, and he sent me they're like socks, wintertime socks, and I think they're supposed to go over your regular socks and then over your pants too, and then you put your shoe on. They're the thickest fucking socks I've ever seen in my life.
Oh yeah.
And I'm in Florida. Like I've never even had the chance to. I put them on once in the closet, and I was like, I'm sweating inside with the AC on. Like I've never ever.
Those are a -10 sock. That's a -10 sock.
I can't even comprehend a world where I would need those.
Yeah, I used to have.
So
this.
they're just there as kind of like an ornament.
I had a Russian military jacket. No, a Chinese military jacket that I bought off of a guy at the Great Wall of China because it was like what's American? It's like -5 out, -10 out, and it was so cold. And this guy was wearing like a duvet, thick, just jacket, walking the line. And I would go, buddy, I'll buy that off you. Like, what is the cost of that jacket? It was like $30 or something. So I bought that jacket. And if it's not -10, you can't wear the jacket. Like you're just standing there dying. You know, it's got to be -10.
Yeah.
But if it's -10,
it's perfect.
Like everyone else is so cold, and you're just like, oh, and it looks like a Chinese military jacket. Like it's just,
oh, that's cool.
It looks communist. You know, it's fantastic.
Was the guy okay?
I
bought it off of.
He was thrilled. He was thrilled when I bought it off him, though. So I'm sure he's fine.
I'm gonna go burn this money.
Yeah, I was about to say, you find him later. He's made a fire with that $30 and it's completely frozen.
Oh yeah, man.
So you spent a lot of time in Japan. Have you been up to Hokkaido, like the northern part? Yeah.
I've been through Japan extensively. That's probably the country I've been through the most, actually.
Really?
Yeah.
I have an interest in going, but just to Hokkaido for some reason. I like that mountain.
Really?
area.
Why? What about Hokkaido?
Well, they have there's like an indigenous culture there.
Yeah, the Ainu.
The Ainu, they seem cool as hell. I like little micro cultures of people that are still just hanging out, doing their thing.
Yeah, and that's
go there and buy some jackets off some guys.
Hokkaido's great. If you're looking for those subcultures, Japan has like 100 islands that sprinkle going south towards Taiwan in all directions, and every single one of those is a unique.
They got their own thing going on.
That's been sort of colonized in the same way. And they're really cool. Those spots are like untouched. Nobody's there. I'm probably going to start a new series this winter that's called Every Japanese Island. And I'm just going to go to every single one of them
that's
and
cool.
just do like just like a basic, here's what it is, man. So there's this one island there. I have to do like an 2-hour-long documentary on it because it's so fucking funny. There's this island in the Pacific Ocean in that Japanese like smattering going down towards Okinawa. It's a volcano sticking up out of the water. Nothing more. Perfect volcano. And on the rim of it, they've got this little extension where the lava's blown out like a tiny flat land. And they've got 100 houses or 100 people's worth of houses there. No anything, no infrastructure, no restaurants, no grocery store, no shops. These are all just fisher people who live on this zit in the middle of the Pacific. You can only get there by boat. Obviously, there's no airplane or anything. And back in, I'm going to say 97, maybe 98, this South African, do you know the djembe, the like goatskin drum that like the stereotypical hippie would play in a drum circle?
Okay. Yeah.
So that's as far as I know, South African thing. At the very least, there's this South African musician who's huge into the djembe. It's his big thing. And back in the 90s, maybe 2000s, maybe 2007, he was just like, I'm going to find some small community somewhere, and I'm going to go there and teach them the djembe. And so he chose this zit island in the middle of Japan, in the middle of nowhere, where everybody's like aged. It's Japan. These are like 70-year-old fishermen. And he goes there. And to this day, the djembe is now like their cultural touch point. It's on their flag. They have like tourists coming in from around the world to join them in like jam sessions. These are old fucking men, fishermen, in the middle of goddamn nowhere. And they've just been given this djembe culture from this random South African. And now it is like foundational to their little 100 people culture.
Okay,
and I just want to go.
Scratch what I said about Hokkaido. Hacky sack was one of them. I was thinking we need to find
change their circle.
We need to find isolated people and teach them something annoying, like slide whistles or something, and just get
eggs.
Oh yeah, man, for sure. The world's
on a
leading
flag.
Slide whistle island.
Yeah, to me, playing a slide whistle on a flag would rock. That would be the best flag ever.
That would be, and that's like your influence on the world.
Yeah,
you know? Like that's the mark you've left on society.
I would travel outside the house for that.
You know,
Yeah.
Those disciples spread.
I mean, that's just incredible to get entire people into an instrument. Like I can't even get my friends to watch the shows I recommend them on like Netflix, and then to go there and he probably played the hell out of that drum. It's like, this is what we do now.
Yeah,
it's so cool to me, and like that's the sort of thing that makes my show like inspiring to me. Like I want to go there so badly just because it's funny. That whole situation is funny to me. There's absurdity there, but it's also so genuinely awesome and human. That's almost what's funny about it, is like it shows, I mean, globalism is this horrible thing. It's like, yeah, but okay, but sharing the world with each other and becoming friends and understanding and sharing this djembe, that's why you're eating tomatoes. That's why you have avocados in your house. It's a good thing that we do this. We need to focus on the good sides of it and highlight those and make them better, because that little island is all of us in our own little way. We just don't realize it, like eating an avocado or whatever. My father, in his generation, Canadians would still say jalapeno because they didn't fucking know what that stuff was. Like that one generation back.
Yeah.
And all of a sudden you're living in a world that has tacos. You didn't have them. They just didn't exist before.
I remember in about 2005, my brother was working for a construction company and brought a bagel sandwich for lunch. And his boss is like a Southern boy and was like, "Your damn sandwich has a hole in the middle of it. What the fuck? What the hell is that shit?" And my brother's like, "It's a bagel. My dad's Jewish, so it's like a
common item."
Yeah, I grew up with bagels. Yeah,
down that
just
similar
funny
line.
that seems pretty recent for a guy to discover what the fuck a bagel was.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Well, I live on an indigenous reserve, just like 1 foot away from where I live, and so I live like basically everyone surrounding me is indigenous. And I was talking to one of my buddies, and I said something Jewish, and he goes, "What's that?" And I was like, "What do you mean?" Like he goes, "Well, what does that word mean?" I was like, "The word Jewish?" He goes, "Yeah." Like,
oh my God.
You've never heard the concept ever. It's never come up in your entire life once. You've never like on TV or ever. And he had no clue. It had never come up in his life ever. And I had to explain to him that. And it was just like that to me. He was like 27 years old.
Really? You had to sit him down and show him Schindler's List and the full line.
Elder Protocols of the Elders of Zion or whatever, just reading through it, So that was wild to me because my reference of the world is very global.
Yeah.
So my understanding of the world is I'm not saying it's better. It's just different. I just have a different view of how things are because I've met that culture or those people or whatever it is. I've lived in the country for probably 3-6 months. And I'm not saying I'm some expert, but there is levels.
As
like I have a map in my head,
to being an expert, a person expert.
Yeah, and like
10,000 hours.
10,000 hours of being locked up. Yeah.
Is there like a place that's still on your bucket list? Some unattainable?
Plenty. It's time more than anything, and money. Like I'm not in any way wealthy. I bet this podcast makes more money than my show does. Honestly, like I don't have ads. I don't have a lot of viewers who come back day by day. They come 6 months later when they've built themselves up to watching that horrific thing I've just put out because they need to it's not bingeable content, and so I'd like to respect that. Like I'm built on Patreon because my Patreon is something like 50 times more engagement per viewer than the average.
Yeah.
Because I make an adult show, so the people who watch me are over 30 probably. They got the desire to help and they know I can't afford it to do it that way. So for me, it's just about like, I wanted to go to New Zealand when I last ended up so I went to Micronesia and then I went and did another season in Japan because the Japanese yen dropped to a third of what it was back the last time I was there. And the flight to Australia or New Zealand was like $10K. It's like, I can't, that's a season for me. That's a full season's filming is like $12K or whatever. Yeah. So just to get over there, I can't do that. And then I figured out this, I'm really good at finding discounts for airlines because of how much I have to now. And so I found this loophole for, what's it called? Frequent flyer points where you can fly to Hawaii for basically nothing, because Hawaii, just like Iceland, just like the Azores, makes it super cheap to get in. And then once you're there, it's like $400 a night at a hotel or whatever, but it's a $400 flight in. So,
yeah,
it should be a $2,000 flight, and they've drastically lowered the price due to some sort of subsidy. So you can get to Hawaii. And once you're in Hawaii for $500 from Toronto, that's a huge way across the world. So Micronesia from Hawaii are very short flights. You got to go, it's a United bus, basically. It's like an island hopper, it calls it. So it's 7 flights to Guam, where it just touches down and takes off on these islands over and over again. Well, let's see. It's Majuro, Kwajalein, Kwajalein. Yeah. It's 6. So it's 6 islands that you've got to jump across. And those are very short flights, 30-minute flights, 40-minute flights, island to island, but they're $500 American each, because it's an obscure, out of the middle of nowhere flight. It'd be $10,000 to do all these flights going across. But the way that your points work on Star Alliance, at least, is abroad. They don't really know how it works, so they just do it by distance. So you can literally go on the Air Canada website and purchase Star Alliance points and go and buy that ticket for $70. That is $500 if you just pay cash. And so my wife and I got across to Japan from Toronto for like $1,100, and it should have been, God, at least $11,000, $12,000. So that's sort of also how I do it. It's like, I want to go to a bunch of places, but how can I get there for $1,000?
Yeah.
Like, I'm going to Japan in December this year. I'm going to start setting up. I'm going to live there. Like, I'm going to buy an apartment and move over there. Oh. So I have a home base over there, but to get to Japan, I'm actually flying through Istanbul on a one-way flight, because I've dropped the flight by 1/3 the price just by doing one-way tickets instead of booking a return. So these are the sorts of things I have to do, but that means I'm going to be in Istanbul. So should I stay a week? Should I film something? Should I make a video? Yeah. So that's also how I end up in places. It's like, I got to go through Istanbul. Maybe I'll make one video on this prophylactic that the Romans used to use, that it's just a plant that grew that they used as a prophylactic that worked as well as condoms did, supposedly. You just ate this plant and you wouldn't produce a kid, and they ate it out.
Yeah, it's gone. Yeah, the second you said that, you said it with such force too. They ate it out. But
they ate the whole thing, and there's none left. And I think last year or earlier this year, some Turkish guy was on a hike and he found some, or at least he thinks he found some. So this is like a 2,000-year-old, extremely important plant out in Cappadocia area. So I'd love to go see that. Like, I'd love to. And if I got a week in Turkey, fuck it. Just going to jump on that. I'm going to write him. I'm going to see if he's available. And if not, I'll just go to where he found it and I'll make the story without him, because you don't really need him, right?
Yeah.
I know what happened there. It's just better if I could. It's better if I can find him, better if I can find the plant, obviously. But if you don't, I mean, the story's already been told in the news. Yeah. I'm just recapping it for people who don't read Turkish biological news,
Yeah.
No,
I wonder, are they planning on like cultivating it, or?
It literally just got found. They haven't even confirmed it's the thing yet. It's some guy. Okay. It's not a scientist or a botanist or something. It's a guy on a walk. So it's brand new.
I hate this
brand
plant
new stuff.
My wife isn't getting pregnant. I think I know what it is.
You know what's funny is I wonder how many people just like walk by something that has not even been discovered yet, and they just
seen
and it just takes the right nerd to know that hasn't been discovered yet.
All the time.
Yeah, probably
all the time.
Yeah,
everywhere, all the time.
Yeah,
you have
a video on that. Like, there's a meat market that.
Oh, I got a number of those actually, because that idea comes up a lot. But the meat market in Takek, that's an old video, man. You dug into my deep roster there. Yeah, I got so many Indian people mad at me about that video because I called it like buying extinct meat or something, because the animal was considered extinct, but you can still buy the meat. And they're like, well, if you can buy the meat, it's not extinct. The core message of this video that you're watching, that's the only thing I said.
It was extinct, and then it just turns out they're eating the shit out of it over there.
Exactly. Like, it's a Lazarus. They thought it was extinct until they found it in that meat market being sold as rat. It wasn't even considered an obscure rat. It was so common that it was known as rat, like not an extra addendum to like rock rat or whatever. It was just rat. But that thing had been extinct for 12,000 years, according to
Did you eat any?
I haven't seen this video. It was just some like off branch of rats that
so
were extinct, but
in a lot of the world, like in the Western world, you've found most of the animals. Now we're getting down to insects, but like everything's been covered and recorded. In Southeast Asia, like, yeah, these people know they have this, like there's the Muntiak deer. We thought it was extinct.
Tiny.
We didn't know it existed. Tiny deer, like one of those little guys with lives in the forest of, I'm going to say Vietnam, Laos. We just didn't know it existed until some lady found it in a meat market. And then they're like, oh, that's like everywhere. Super common. Extremely common deer. It's just nobody ever came and asked. Rural Laos is insane. Like you can't get around there. The US bombed them in the Vietnam War illegally in something called the Secret War so thoroughly that 1% of the land is currently safe to walk on.
God.
1%. You can still see the Agent Orange visibly in the hills when you go by hills. They're still discolored. So like it's fucked. The country is fucked. And there's entire villages I went to go see that use American arms, like bombs, as building for like fences and to keep up their houses and stuff. Like the stilts of their houses are American bombs because there's just an infinite number of these littered unexploded ordnance everywhere. God. Everywhere. Like you can't go to your backyard. And every time it rains, the local police, I talked with a bunch of people about it. Every time it rains, the local police will get 15, 20 bombs brought in that just like bubbled up from the ground in the water, pushing them up everywhere. You can't go off the beaten path. I worked with
did they like us over there or
yes.
Oh, really?
Yeah. Yeah. I mean,
after all those bombs being found everywhere, you would think we would probably get a bad rap.
Everything in the world is more individual than you'd give it credit for. Dudes are just dudes. Do you hate black people for some obscure? No. I mean, if that guy is a dick to you in that moment, absolutely they're going to treat you like shit, and they're going to tack on, yeah, he's one of those, because they already have latent animosity. But if you do as the Romans do, people will be like, oh, he's respecting us and our culture. Nobody ever is upset, or at least 99.999% of the time, people are super thrilled when you come and engage with their culture and embrace it and respect it and ask questions and want to know more and actually care and want to listen. Those are good qualities for anybody in any country. Just think about what you would do if some guy from Ethiopia came to your town and you were just chatting with him.
Well, I'm not digging up Ethiopian bombs out of my soil in my backyard.
No, but in Ethiopia, they don't have mass shootings. You do.
Yeah.
I mean, America's got a very serious fear problem that other countries don't have about itself, that it doesn't ever recognize or really articulate, that other countries don't feel about strangers and each other and the average person and the safety of their situation. You guys are just inundated with your own culture, so you don't understand that other cultures see it so dramatically differently. And if a guy from Ethiopia came to visit, that would be something that his culture would have internalized about you. Just like, oh, I totally forgot about this. When I was talking about that African guy who was tortured a while ago, his big comment to me was the one thing he hates when foreigners visit is that they think they're in a famine, because the last time anybody heard about Ethiopia was 88, Live Aid or whatever. That's the last time you heard about Ethiopia. Fucking 1988. A lot of things have happened since 1988.
So Live Aid
reference that.
They got food now?
Yeah. I mean, and even back then, the famine was done by the Derg, by the rulers, to deliberately starve people. It'd be like Stalin doing a Holodomor. It was intentional. Gotcha. So giving the government the food to make up for them not handing out the food. I mean, you're not solving anything. Live Aid did nothing to benefit Ethiopia. But the Ethiopians, that's more what I mean by like, do as the Romans do. That pisses them off. It'd be like coming to America as an African dude and be like, where's the school shootings? It's super not the average person's day-to-day experience. And that's what you're trying to tap into, is a guy living his day. Everybody's the same, man. We all have shitty office jobs and we're all out here, just trying to have a good day with her. Not us. But,
yeah.
Not us, but
not us.
The average individual is pretty similar across the world. Like my buddy and I, who we filmed in Ethiopia, we just got, actually, this is even the worst, is the whole world is going so shit right now. And you don't notice it in the West because we're like the last domino to fall. Yeah. But the economy worldwide, fell off a cliff the last 2 years. It's insane. The amount of dudes who have worked with me abroad, who have written me in the last 2 months, 3 months to be like, I need help. Like, I'm out of money, no jobs, nothing coming. And these are dudes who you would never imagine would ever come back. Like, obviously, when you travel like I do, there's thousands of dudes who they just get your WhatsApp so they can ask for money. These are not those dudes. These are dudes who really just a normal guy, and they're fucking desperate right now. So I've been sending money to a couple of those guys, just what I can spare, because I know that they would not be asking me if it was not the end of the line. 55-year-old good fathers, working men, just hurting. Ethiopia has 1/5 the value of its currency of when I went there 5 years ago. Lebanon, if you had $1 million 4 years ago, you have $12,000 right now. Their currencies are collapsing. The world's having a rough run. During the pandemic in Cambodia, another country that I'm well connected to, I think it was 60 to 80% of the people lost their homes.
So what's
just gone?
What's causing the economic collapse in like Lebanon
and? The whole world is one big economy. Obviously, China's not growing at 9% like it needs to. Russia's in a war. They do all of the oil and the wheat is Ukraine. So food prices, oil prices are basically the foundation prices of the world, right? Gas price, especially in Canada, like every single thing you buy in Canada was shipped on a truck for the most part, like from a long distance. And so gas price is the price of food. It is the price of, construction materials, everything. And so being at war with Russia obviously puts a huge weight in that category. Obviously, COVID, we printed an obscene amount of money, not just here, obviously, not just in the United States and Canada, but worldwide. Yeah. And when the United States prints money, most countries take out their debt in USD. So if it starts to go poorly, their currency just fucking collapses, because everybody's money is in USD and they're paying back, interest on those loans in USD. And then if you can't do that, your country's economy is so shittily ruined. And a lot of that's just, it's like the perfect storm. All of these things are happening at the same time. China's real estate market is basically done for the moment. And I don't know the stats, but 80 to 90% of all Chinese savings are in real estate, like double what the US was in 2007 when that collapsed. So it's just like we're about to hit a wall. I'd even argue we already have. I'd argue that we're in a world recession probably 6 months to 8 months in.
Selling all my S&P 500 stock right now. You got me scared, dude. What the hell?
I'd argue we just haven't felt it over here yet because of the way we run our economies around the world. But you got to keep in mind, America's an empire. Mm-hmm. And there's a ton of countries that prop up that empire, just like any empire. Rome didn't exist based on the geological foundations around Rome. It wasn't like they were getting tin from next door and all that stuff. You have an empire. If America wants rubber, that's South America and Southeast Asia. Okay. Like you're not getting tires without those countries being operational, functional economies everywhere on earth. You couldn't eat food. You couldn't get to the all these things are important worldwide. And so, being on the top of the empire, obviously Rome doesn't collapse first. Rome waits until all of the downstream stuff has happened, but the downstream stuff is happening extensively, worse than I've ever seen in my life personally. So to me, that's also another reason to travel. It's like that's the canary. We're in a coal mine together, but the canary is not in the United States. It's usually somewhere else, unless it's an American-driven problem. But this is not. This is just world economy. Mm-hmm. There's a huge war going on. We ignore that stuff. It's not like back in the day when war was on everybody's mind. But I think Afghanistan broke everybody. We just don't care anymore. Do what you want. Leaders of everything. We have no say. We're just eating it at this point. During Vietnam, the amount of rioting and anger and whatever. I mean, Afghanistan was longer.
Yeah.
Afghanistan went on so long, a guy went to it whose dad had him after his tour in Afghanistan. It's like a guy did a tour who was born after his father had done a tour. That's how long Afghanistan went. Unreal.
Yeah, that's a long time.
His mom probably got pregnant while he was on tour.
Yeah, well, yeah. I mean, the kid did not come out the same race, but you know, I mean, everybody.
Yeah.
But yeah, so like we never.
Well,
really
did we
talked about how
win
that
in
affected
Afghanistan?
society. What's that?
Did we win?
There are no winners.
I don't think.
I don't think so.
I mean, it depends on what you wanted to do there, I suppose.
What was the overall goal of invading Afghanistan? I don't think anybody has a goal when they do it.
I don't think there was a real goal.
Yeah,
everything I've read from the U.S. diplomats there,
yeah.
It's more like it started in the first 2 years as an ideological response, and then it lasted for another 16 as a monetary one because everybody's earning.
Yeah,
you know how do you in a society that's making 2 to 3% growth rate get 10% growth? You have to get it from the public funds, basically, or scam. And it's really hard to convince a nation to hand over $10 billion just for nothing, just for fun.
Yeah.
And so if you put yourself in a war, you just write those losses off. And so Afghanistan, I think, just became a write-off for the United States to fund corruption, essentially, the way that Japan does it with the construction industry or China does it with the construction industry. You just basically take public funds to support industries that, you know, benefit you politically. And I think Afghanistan was just that, really.
Does Japan do that? I know China does that, where they build those like weird ass concrete skyscrapers that are crumbling and falling apart. Does Japan have a similar
everything that's happening in China happened to Japan in 70s to 80s. It's called the economic waterfall. Basically, in the 1940s and 50s, after World War II, the United States took all its factories and they sent them abroad. They sent them to the two countries who they didn't want to become their enemies anymore, which is Germany and Japan. And they gave them huge loans, Marshall Plan, huge loans to restart their economies. And those two economies fucking boomed, but they boomed as essentially American imperial subjects.
Yeah.
Every single prime minister of Japan since World War II is Christian in a country of under 1% Christian people. Why? Right? You cannot become a politician in Japan unless you change to Christianity because you're showing deference to the imperial leader who controls Japan today. So when you learn about the politics of Japan, you can't do it without understanding that they are imperialized and quite successfully at that. It's not necessarily a bad thing, depending on how you look at the world, because they tried to become the empire doing that to us. That was their goal in the Second World War. It's a very long history, but basically Woodrow Wilson, your president after World War I, is like every ethnicity should have its nation because he was a super racist guy.
Yeah.
And his whole thing is like ethnicities don't get along, separate them, and then we'll make this League of Nations and it'll be all of them talking together. But that obviously doesn't work because how do you split up countries that have been mixed forever? You know, I mean, look at World War II. Germany just decided that they were going to increase that little corner of themselves again and then just take all that back. And that's sort of how you can't break it down that way. But Japan still tries to break it down that way. A lot of Asia does because they haven't internationalized like us. They don't have the same. America is an experiment in pluralism. Yeah. Japan is not, at least not yet. So, you know, they have their own systems and they have their own ways of viewing the world, and none of those are wrong. They're just in a different position than you guys are. They're sub because they were conquered. And it's been like that. You know, you guys only gave back Okinawa and a bunch of the islands in 78 or something like that. I met a guy there who had been conquered by America. He was an American citizen who Japan conquered the island during that push out. He became a Japanese citizen. America came back. He became an American citizen again, and then America left and he became Japanese. And he's an American guy. But, you know, that was one short period of time. It was like a 10-year stretch, and all of those things happened to him.
Have you been to
20-year stretch,
like Nagasaki or Hiroshima?
Yeah, I've been to Nagasaki, Hiroshima.
Do you feel like weird walking around there? Like maybe you shouldn't be there, or do you get any dirty looks from people? Like, the fuck are you doing here, dude?
You know the September 11th memorial? You ever been there?
Not as a Muslim guy, but if I showed up there wearing a big fucking turban or something, I'm sure I'd get some dirty looks.
But even as you, I've never been anywhere I felt more disrespected the act than the 9/11 memorial. People are there like screaming, selfie sticking. It's not a revered place. There's nothing there that makes you feel reverent to what happened. That's the opposite, because Japan's a very reserved society. There's nobody standing out there screaming drunk. You know, some bullshit, take a picture of me. So when you are there, it's kind of like being at the 9/11 memorial if people took it seriously.
Gotcha.
So how you feel is entirely up to you, while you're there. Other people don't. There isn't this animosity built up against you. But you as a person, it's like, holy fuck, we did that.
Yeah.
At the same time, we focus on that because it's one major big bomb. But what America did to Laos, infinitely worse. Yeah. Infinitely. Not even in the same category. The United States dropped more bomb tonnage on Cambodia or Laos, choose either country, during the Vietnam War, not at war with those countries. Not at war. They dropped more tonnage than every ally in World War II combined, including the nukes. So those nukes are horrible, but fuck did we ruin Laos and Cambodia.
Well,
and we never talk about those.
Yeah. Well, that's why I asked whether or not you felt any dirty looks at the bomb drop places, because I was surprised in Laos there wasn't any animosity, because I know that they still have unexploded mine ordnance and stuff, like kids run into mines all the time, and
all the time.
You know, if that happened, I'd be like, who the fuck dropped the mines here? Oh, it was the Americans. I'd have a pretty long-standing animosity towards the Americans. Yeah, I'd be
for sure. For sure.
They seem pretty relaxed.
I get what you're saying.
Yeah.
But it's also really American exceptionalism goes both ways. A lot of people use it to say America is amazing, but other people use it to say America is uniquely bad. And that's also untrue. America's just the world's leading empire. They're actually, by imperial standards throughout history, quite sensitive, quite soft. However, they are still the world's leading empire, and they do these horrible things. But when you go to these countries, it's not noble savages waiting out these horrible Americans to come and bomb them. They're having internal strife, no different than you guys are, down very similar political lines for very similar political reasons. And generally what America's doing is unleashing one subgroup who feels slighted. Like in Laos, it was the Hmong. So they just basically, the CIA just went in Syria, they did it with the Kurdish, right? They just go in and they find a subgroup and then they give them all the guns in the world because those guys are pissed. That's not America made them pissed. America went in and gave pissed people guns. So yes, that's a horrible thing. I'm not defending it in any way. What America did in Laos is a war crime as bad as almost any that have ever existed. Horrible stuff. But that said, if you took Canada and you gave us control of the empire, we're doing it too. If you take Germany, you give them control of an empire. Look at what they do. You take the British. The first concentration camp is in South Africa, and it's British people doing it to Dutch people. It's not, this is empire. This is a horrible thing, but it's empire. And so to be too self-effacing almost becomes like its own form of superiority. Like we're the baddest and the best, we're
well, it's hard to have evil. That mentality when houses are literally propped up by our ordinance that we left there. I mean,
for sure. For sure. Some of those also say China on them because China was a major backer of Cambodia during that time. It's the one thing Nixon and China agreed on, part of their big political strife. So do we blame China for it? They probably had more of an effect on Pol Pot coming to power. So is it an American problem, or are these two empires who are trying to keep down the Russians, who are, according to Henry Kissinger, at least domino affecting communism across Southeast Asia? Yeah. It's just empires acting like pricks. And it's like all this stuff about, Russia's trying to influence our elections. It's like, yeah, they all are. Every major country is trying to influence U.S. elections. Every single one. Of course they are. They would be morons not to. You're the leading empire and they're a downstream provider of rubber. They need to do that. And so if a country like Bangladesh is influencing U.S. elections, no shit, right? Of course they are. You guys are the power centers. So it's just like Rome. You might be a governor out in like Eastern Syria during Roman times. But if you want to affect the empire, you go to Rome and you have an army and, you know, all that stuff.
Yeah.
I think it's kind of the same with the US, is you guys are so important and valid that you never really have to think about other people. It's not your fault. I mean, you're the center who looks outwards, right? But if you're on the outwards, you're looking towards the center. So we always have to focus on you guys, just by design. And so I think you guys get a little bit more hate than you deserve, for the horrible things you've done, because I don't think other countries would have, for the most part, followed different lines were they given similar situations. Just, I don't think people are better elsewhere. I don't think like non-Americans, like, oh my God, France. It's like, yeah, look at the history of France. They're horrible when they were in charge. Spain, horrible when they were in charge, you know, just
Dutch.
You guys are just on top.
Yeah.
And it sucks being, you know, heavy is the head that wears the crown and all that stuff. But you don't want to be like Ethiopia, man. You don't want a society that's broken down. You don't want that. That's hard.
I liked when you called us important and valid, and I tried to tune out that you're talking about America.
Yeah.
That it was like an individual
Yeah.
thing. You're saying some really nice stuff there. I forgot you were talking about like the country, as a whole,
yeah.
when you're saying you guys.
I kind of separated myself a little bit too, and just
Yeah, when you say the bad stuff,
yeah,
like, I wasn't there.
Yeah. No, fair enough.
I've got this pipe where the stone part's from Laos. It's
really?
the ocean pipe from like, I think like 1200.
Oh,
Which
wow.
is pretty cool.
Imperial Plundering in action.
Now
dope,
I feel
man.
pretty bad about it, but
No.
do you have any cool little relics you've collected from your journeys? Any museums you've looted? Or
I do have some cool stuff, but it's accidental. I try not to collect stuff because of the way my
that's
personality is. It weighs you down. I used to have stuff, and then I realized like I'd have to take it with me when I moved. And like I moved from age 17 to 26 to a new country every 5 months.
Ew.
So for me to like have stuff sucks. You know,
Yeah.
I have one ukulele that I've kept from when I lived in Hawaii back when I was like 17 or 18. And that is the only thing in my life that I like want to keep with me. Everything else I can lose. And I also have a mentality
Don't
when you
let your
travel.
wife hear that.
Yeah. Yeah, but whenever you travel, also like I have this mentality that I'm going to lose one thing no matter what per trip. It just happens, like a sweater.
That's why you need to pick up
something.
one thing from each country.
Yeah.
And then
The
Even
coolest thing I got was this dude, Pierre, in Lebanon. He runs a fake museum. It's really a way to sell fossils that he found, because Lebanon has the only fossils in the Middle East of fish because of the way the highlands are. And so he's got these fossils, and you know, so he's selling fossils. And I came in, I'm like, this is so cool. You're so funny. Like you're in the middle of a war-torn country trying to sell fossils to tourists who don't exist. Like I just love it, you know, like the whole thing is funny to me.
Yeah.
And he's like the most serious autistic paleontologist, and you know, just loves that he's got these, loves talking about him. He gave me a little 100 million year old fish fossil, so I've got that at home, and I thought it was like $10.
That is cool.
Like some specialty item, but that was really
so it's
cool.
got a story attached to it and a person.
Yeah.
And stuff. That's really cool.
The story attached. Actually, so this Sharpie, speaking of gifts, when I was in Cuba, there was a guy named Napoleon, farted in the open mouth of my cameraman, which was incredible. Like 75-year-old man walking up the stairs, let out a banger in his open mouth. Just unforgettable.
But I had to up for 3 hours.
Yeah, I had a Sharpie, and he was he kept eyeing the Sharpie, and eventually he just took it from me, and then explained in Spanish, like, you can't get this in Cuba. Doesn't matter the money, doesn't matter your influence, man, you're not getting a Sharpie. And I was looking at him like, bro, that sucks. That is a horrible sentence that implies so many other things, you know, just, oh, God. So I gave him the Sharpie naturally. But that's sort of how my gifting goes is, you know, what do people want? Try to give it to them.
Yeah.
I went to a Syrian refugee camp in North Jordan, the Syrian refugee camp, like the famous one that the UN uses if they're like Potemkin. We actually do this right camp, you know, come and look at this one, don't look at the others. And I went there and I met a kid, Fajar, fantastic kid. Another video I knew would never do well, but he's grown up in this camp his whole life. He was born there. He's been there like 12 years, knows nothing except the camp. And coolest kid I've ever met, just like little bro, just little me, you know, just reminded me of me a little little nice shit disturber. And I mean, like, I was there with him for 2 days, and he was showing me around his town, and I was just getting to love this kid. He's so cool. And eventually I'm just like, kid, what do you want? Fucking name it. I'll buy you something. And he goes, my school has this music room, but we don't have a piano. Will you get me a piano? And so I went and I bought him like a keyboard piano. But like, that kid didn't ask for something for himself.
Yeah.
He asked for something for his school, and like, you know, then you leave that room and you just feel awful because you helped, but to what extent?
Yeah.
You know, you're leaving that kid there.
Yeah.
But at the same time, what do you want me to do? You know, 60,000 people there. I'm not going to save any of them, let alone all of them. And so that's like what you can do. So I think of gifts and souvenirs in that respect. It's like, what can I leave here that a guy remembers that this happened, and he remembers it well? You know, my father always says you're an ambassador for your country all the time, and don't forget that. And I'd say you're also an ambassador for yourself. You know, who knows? Like, karma's not real, but it's real inside you. You know what you've done. And it kind of gives you sort of like a confidence of being decent. You did a decent thing. You know, you carry that with you. That at least I did a decent thing, right?
You're like re-sales pitching that idea of bringing a slide whistle to a remote community. You're an ambassador. That's what I
came on for.
Yeah.
Why do you think I signed up for this podcast, man? Yeah. I'm a single issue voter.
Yeah. You know, instead of that keyboard, you could have delivered like,
so I did
like 10,000 slide whistles. A recorder. So yeah.
I got a free recorder with the piano, and I gave it to the daughter. Yeah. And so I step into this refugee's like ramshackle room in, you know, meet his mother to like thank her for letting me film in their house and all this stuff. And I give the 2 kids the presents, and the boy presses, like, immediately turns on the keyboard and presses like the play me an annoying song button. And so that's going off, and it's like a shitty keyboard. It's not, you know, I paid maybe $120 for it. It's not high. So this is a bad sound. This is not a sound you want in your room. And then the girl who had given the recorder just starts blowing the recorder. And so you just left ear, right ear.
Yeah.
The worst fucking thing. And I'm looking at the mom in the eyes, and I'm like, I did not think this through. I'm sorry. I realize I've ruined your home, but no, it's good. That was really chill. God, what nice people too. Like, you'd think they'd be so bitter or upset or whatever. Just super friendly. Crazy. The Middle East is so friendly. Easily the friendliest part of the world. Like, you know, on the street, in person, one-on-one. Yeah, even in the most dire situations. And I actually find when you go through a place that's recently experienced trauma, civil war, major difficulties, people are way better than in places that they don't. And I think it's because they're like, they don't want more shit piled on.
Yeah.
You know, they just want their day to go smooth.
Yeah.
It's been so terrible. Just let my day go smooth. Cambodia, Guatemala, like some of the nicest countries on earth are the ones that recently had very serious troubles. And I think a lot of that is just, let's calm this all down.
Yeah.
And, you know, I think that makes those countries really fun to visit, just because people aren't. 95% of every country's people are good. 95% are good. Every single country. It's like the exact same number. It's just how hostile are those 5%. You know, that's the difference between countries, is what are those 5% doing? What types of crimes do they commit? When do they commit them? Who do they commit them against? That's the real issue. But most often it's fine, especially rurally, usually.
Yeah.
Depending on the rural area, but usually all they want is the white rhino to dance a little, you know, just show them a little something.
See that horn.
Yeah.
Yeah. Let's see that horn, baby. And, you know, if you give them that, like, all right, so I was in Ethiopia at the Falasha, the Jewish village. So there used to be Jews in Ethiopia. I wouldn't even really call them Jews. They separated before Judaism really was Judaism, but they consider themselves Jews. Israel half considers them Jews. And the Ethiopians call them the Falasha, or the outsiders. And they're obviously just like, you know, all over the world, oppressed, kept in ghettoized community, which is this one part of Ethiopia where they've got this ghettoized community. None of them live there anymore, as far as I understand, because Israel airlifted them all out in the 80s to like save them, or whatever you want to call it. But that village is still there, and it is a tourist trap for Western Jewish people who are visiting, who want to come see it. So when you get there, every single person's just asking for money immediately, all the time, from the moment you arrive, because it is a tourist trap. It is, in fact, probably Ethiopia's only tourist trap, like a place that is just meant to get you to give them some money. And there's a graveyard nearby because a lot of people didn't even believe they were Jews, right? Like it's an obscure enclave in the middle of Ethiopia that has been separated from Judaism for like 2,000 something years. So nobody even believed them. They don't have any texts. They don't know a lot of the stuff that Judaism would have developed since then. So they're just super isolated. They're a really cool place to go visit. But if you go to their graveyard near the town, it's got Star of David's on all the ancient graves. So, pretty obvious connection there. But the graveyard is run by a gang because they know tourists are going to go there. Especially, we're talking about North American, upper middle class, Jewish women in their 50s or 60s, maybe a little bit older. That's who tends to go to this village as a tourist. And if you can imagine them as a group of 2 or 3 walking up to a gang of like 16, 17 guys, what they do is they let you go into this graveyard, but they won't let you out without paying, because it's a one-way in. And so it's at the end of one of my videos. You can actually see me right up in the face of the gang leader, but like, I just wasn't going to do that. And a lot of that also comes from like understanding the situation. These guys aren't going to hurt me. They're so scared of me, because the way their country works, they don't have the power. If the government came in, they'd kill everyone right there for nothing, and it wouldn't matter. It would never matter again, so you just don't mess with us unless you're in a truly safe environment. And so I recognize this, and that allows me to get up in the face of the guy, and me and Eric, and you can imagine Eric's a big, tough boy. And we've got my driver, Bekele, who's Ethiopian guy. And he's like this 55-year-old father who I was talking about recently asking us for money. And he's up in their face. So it's the 3 of us and like 18 of them. And I'm realizing like, I'm not going to fight these men. I'm trying to front, I'm not going to fight them. Obviously there's so many of them. But I got to get them to move. I'm not going to pay them. There's a 0% chance I'm going to pay. Like that's my whole personality. 0% chance.
Oh my God, look over there.
Yeah. So that's what I did. I got my drone. I walked 10 feet back with my drone, and I'm like, Eric, stop them from coming to the drone. And I flew the drone up in the air. And these guys have never seen a drone in their life, like conceptualized it. They don't have internet.
Yeah.
These are men without shoes, right? So I fly the drone, and I fly it like 150 feet over that way, and all of them just run after it, because I fly it a little bit above their heads. Like they just want to go follow it. And so then we walk out to where our car is, and we're just sitting on this big open area where they could never hem us in. And the gang leader comes over to Eric and I, and he goes, "You're good." But like, that's kind of what you got to do. And then after that, all of that gang followed us and hung out because I showed them the drone and I let some of the kids fly. And then after that, they were on our side, 100%. Backing us up, trying to show us this. They have this way of making honey they roll a rug full of bees and they leave it in a tree. So they were showing us their rug full of honey and all this stuff. And then we go up to the highway there, and there's a donkey chasing down a female donkey for like 12 minutes in a very horny, fully erect way. And it's so funny. So me and my buddies are laughing at that, and all the gang comes in, and they realize like they think it's funny. They understand the joke. And so now we're all cheering on this donkey. And, and within 20 minutes, those guys were on our side. If somebody else came up, they would have protected us against that guy. So like, you need to keep your backbone, obviously. Never pay that dude. Like, just never do it. When we were leaving Ethiopia, they tried to rip me off. Yeah, they tried to rip me off leaving Ethiopia because Eric's visa was one day overstayed, but it was a month-long visa. It was a 31-day visa, and it was February. So I was like, lady, that's not 31 days. I'm not an idiot, right? But they just want the $500 or $200 or whatever the fine was. And I'm like, I would never pay you. There's nothing you can do that will get that $200. And it was probably an hour and a half. We had 20 staff members from the Ethiopian airport show up. Every single one of them is like, you're going to pay. No, I'm really not. I don't think you understand. It's not going to happen. And so after I'd say like an hour and a half of that, I'm like, Eric, go sleep in front of the customs booth. So he goes, and like, he's a real G, this guy. He goes and just curls up fetal in front of the customs booth. And now everybody's losing their mind. The like 12 staff are watching. They're like, what are you, I was like, well, I mean, you're not going to give him a visa back into Ethiopia, and you're not letting him leave. So I guess he's going to stay here. And she fucking stamped our thing and sent us on our way. But, you know, like that'll happen to you all day, every day if you don't just say no.
Yeah.
You know, like I'm just not going to do it.
I would have a hard time having, I guess, like an assertive front if I didn't share the same language with the people. You know what I mean? Like, I feel like the best way of making sure I'm not rude or whatever if I don't speak their language is be like, okay, like I'm agreeable, you know.
Oh, I'm going for rude. I'm going for rude. There's nothing polite about when my back's up. Yeah. Like you chose to do that to me, and they're trying to fuck you. They are trying to screw you. That is their whole goal, is to screw you. So you being polite to them, that's a North American, especially as a Canadian, that's such a Canadian response. It's like, well, I mean, he has less money than me, so I guess I should have let him screw me over. It's like, yeah, but he would have done that no matter what.
Yeah.
Right? Like he's just screwing, period. And he's just waiting for anybody to take it. When I lived in China, I went to go buy a t-shirt, and I'm so good at haggling now because, you know, just like live in China.
I have never had to haggle anything in my life.
Oh, really?
I would be fucked.
I also can't say no to people.
Haggling has a great, easy trick. Haggling is so easy. Take the price that you would be happy with, put it on the table, and walk out with the product. That's the end of a haggle, because they will stop you if you didn't hit the right number. But if you did hit the right number, it's like, he's, you know, I don't want to. That's the real boss move. That is how you get through haggling without spending 35 minutes doing it. But every country is different in haggling. Like in Thailand, you could probably get the price to half. In China, you could get it to a 10th, maybe a 16th. So like if you're haggling the same in both places, then you're ended up getting screwed. So really what you need to do is choose what you think is good. It doesn't matter what they think is good. Just choose what you think is a fair price, and then everybody wins.
Well, the problem is I'm from America, so like I don't know the.
But it's still
Five Guys burger is like $24. Like
it's still fair to you, you know. Like that's, as long as you're happy, that's the haggle. It doesn't really matter. I mean, it's not about screwing the Filipino until you get their last 10 cents. That's a dick move. It's about meeting in a place where everybody's happy and nobody's an idiot, you know. But for me, it's more about bribing. Like I'll haggle in a way where the other person gets respect. But if somebody wants me to bribe them, I'm going to make it really difficult for everybody, because you do have power too. You're scared, you know, but you have more power than you imagine as a Westerner in a lot of places, because your government will do things for you that their government will back down on. Not my government, not for me, as proven in Lebanon, but
sure,
you know, America does have a certain swagger abroad.
We got those 8 aircraft carriers that Canada doesn't have. I forgot.
Gotta do something with them, you know. What's the point? You know,
what the fuck am I doing here in Tallahassee, dude? I need to fucking globetrot a little bit. I need to go traveling around. I need to go to Papua New Guinea. If I get abducted, there's drones, dude. They'll drone strike people.
They'll drone you right back out.
Yeah.
Speaking of drones, I droned a UN pirate prison in Somalia. Whole thing before I realized what it was. And the only reason I realized what it was is I swept past a guard tower and I'm like, that looks like a prison. And I looked it up on my phone and it says UN pirate prison. And I mean, my drone is in it. It's fucking in it. Like it is all around that thing. Like I am all over it.
What do you mean by UN pirate prison? Like where the prisoners inside?
So when those pirates in Somalia like hijack something and they're stopped, what do you do with them? Right? You send them to Somaliland, to Hargeisa, and they go in a UN run prison, which is this prison that I droned over, which I had no idea until looking at the
conditions later. Look when you droned over.
Yeah.
It looked exactly like a normal prison.
Okay.
Big old dusty yard, guard towers. I was
imagining it on the sea for some reason. I was imagining
no, it's in Hargeisa. It's in a city. It's like
prison would be like a floating fortress.
No, that's how you take the power from them, is you landlock them. You take those pirates off the water.
That's true. That is their homeland.
If it was a floating prison, they'd erect a big fucking mast and put a sail on that bitch.
That would be.
I've seen the movie Waterworld. I know what happens when you make a floating prison.
Yeah.
Kevin Costner fucks the whole thing up.
Yeah,
that'd be pretty cool. They put a steering wheel on the prison and just drifted it out there.
You put us all in one ship. Your greatest mistake.
One ship, one crew.
Some German oil tanker just sees a full prison rolling at him on the.
My God.
But yeah, no, and I mean, shit happens though abroad. You just got to roll with that stuff. Everything is kind of funny in retrospect, as long as it didn't kill you.
Yeah,
that's how I see it. That's how I see it. And a lot of
mentality.
Yeah.
There's also a fair amount of contradictions in there because you're like, most people are so nice around the world, and then you opened up this entire interview with, so my friend with tattoos went outside and a small child tried flaying him alive.
Absolutely.
The children were flaying him. The man was running with the rock above his head. And
he might have been trying to sell you that rock. You don't know
true,
that.
Yeah.
It could have been anything.
It could have been. He could have been trying to show me a gemstone. With
Rich guys over there. Haggle for this rock.
Yeah. Could have been
that kid's going to skin him. I'm going to squash him with a rock to protect him.
Oh, man.
Anyways.
Yeah, no, I mean, but that's the whole thing about the 5%, right?
Yeah.
And also reading the room.
Yeah.
I've been in the worst situations in my life in Canada. Just because I was in a bad, I chose a dumb choice. Ended
being
up somewhere
in Canada,
stupid.
or
just there's parts of every country that are bad. And when you're 14 years old, trying to buy illegal substances on the street of a major city, sometimes things go poorly for you.
Yeah,
it's just how it is. But I don't know. I guess it's just who I am. It's like what I find interesting, fun number 2 or whatever you called it.
Yeah.
I'm about to take a fun number 2 after this podcast.
Yeah, you got anything else? It's 5:10. I'm supposed to clock out of my job at 5:00 and go up there and be a dad. It is 10 minutes.
Oh
past.
No, I've kept you guys forever here. I'm a chat.
No, you've been a great guest.
Yeah, like this is like best guest experience in a long time because
can't beat John Mcafee.
Yeah, you've got your own stories to tell, and
something important that I don't have: life experience.
Yeah. Something I don't have: a backbone to say no to people when they try to sell you something.
Yeah.
So
hey, you could buy some really cool things if you just say yes.
We have both been gotten by the classic scam of, will you buy these gummy bears or these cookies for like $20 to help my whatever? Yeah. And then the guy's just putting the money in his fucking pocket and walking.
Absolutely.
When I
did
it,
oldest scam in the book.
I knew that was happening, but I thought I was going to get about 10 Reese's Cups bars. And the guy saw the money and left and didn't give me a single goddamn piece of chocolate.
My guy shook my hand and he was black and he said, "You can trust me. I'm one of the good ones." And I said, I'm like, well, now I have to buy or else I seem like racist.
I feel awful for that intro. I'm sure
he wouldn't fucking let go of my hand. And so I was just left there shaking his hand. I was like, I'll give you almost any amount of money to get the fuck off me. But
my whole personality is built to reject that person in a way that makes them not return to my door.
Oh, really?
Yeah. No, I mean, it's just who I am, I feel like that person's scamming me.
Yeah.
Where is my moral line that I got to hold for that guy? I don't give a shit.
Hey,
there's 6-7 billion people. I mean, you're just some guy trying to fuck me over.
You said everybody's mostly the same around the world. Do you think the trick where you go like, hey, something's on your shirt, and then they look down and you go, boing, would that work all across the world?
Oh, yeah.
That's funny everywhere? Okay.
I would really like it.
It's probably easier in other places.
Oh, for sure.
They don't do it as much.
No.
You're coming. We do it every day.
Maybe we could find a remote enclave of people and convince them that's how the rest of the world says hello. Just be like,
you
got something on your shirt.
You totally could do that. You could absolutely convince people of that.
Yeah.
In my experience around the world, there's so many little pockets of people who, like, a second grade education would be the smartest man by far in that room.
I need to move.
And it's always really funny. because they're still good, decent dudes, but their reference points for the world are so funny to me because they don't have any reference you have. So trying to talk to them, you never realize how much of your speech is reference based.
Yeah.
Oh, I'm fully aware. They wouldn't get any of the movie references I make, and we'd have very little connection.
Yeah. Oh, and like the cultural things that are funny, like Japanese language, for example. Japanese language doesn't have sarcasm. You cannot be sarcastic. It won't work. People will just think you're lying or that you're saying something weird, but there's no humor to saying the reversal of what's true. Whereas in English, that's 75% of all jokes is just reversing expectation. In Japanese, the joke virtually always has to include social stigma. So like somebody's doing something antisocial because that's funny. You're reversing expectation of their society, but you can't go too far. You have to go in the right direction. So they have a comedian called Hard Gay, and he's just a man in a Speedo, like a glittery Speedo, and he just runs around in public. But that's so anti-social for the Japanese. That is great comedy. Like really
think, like
good
Peanuts
comedy.
is funny, where she holds the football and then pulls it out, or is
that
like
that type of stuff would be funny.
Okay. They still get slapstick over there.
Very funny.
Yeah.
The slapstick is huge over there.
Okay.
To the point that it actually
awesome.
kind of bothers you a little bit because it's not ours. You think it's good until you're like, that's just not.
Yeah.
You missed it. You didn't nail the joke. You didn't nail the joke because the punchline was a little off. And that's how we're doing it in response. And I learned living in Germany and Japan that you can, like, when you learn what they think is funny, you can make great jokes.
Yeah.
They land. Germans are funny. They're very funny people. They just don't think what we think is funny. And vice versa. Yeah. If you make a Hitler joke in Germany, it'll land, and it'll land well. Like, just because they're so sensitive about it, but at the same time, they know that's like this sensitive thing that you're supposed to joke about rather than treat as sacrosanct. Like us with 9/11. If people make all sorts of
people in the U.S. like. It was probably 2 years after that shit happened. There was 9/11 jokes everywhere.
Absolutely, and it's the same for them. And if you know that, you can nail a joke. Yeah. Imagine an Ethiopian guy who spoke rudimentary English dropped the perfect 9/11 joke. Like that'd be funny. That'd be more funny than a normal joke. So that's kind of.
Kick this football and he had his finger on the football. And when I went to kick it, he pulled it up
right into the towers with the football.
Yeah, that would be funny.
So that's funny too, is when you start learning other countries' jokes. Like in Japan, if you ever want to make a joke that lands, it's very simple. They have the word delicious is umai, umai, but that's like two separated things, u and mai. And so there was this Chris Farley type comedian for them would be the best reference point. There, Chris Farley, his big thing was that he would eat food, and because he's so fat, he would get so excited about eating the food that he'd fuck up the word umai and say mayu. And that's like a mid-90s callback joke. Yeah. If you ever go to Japan and you don't speak Japanese and you're sitting with Japanese people and you pick up a piece of food and eat it and go, mayu, it would be like it would be like saying in a van down by the river, but for that, like, it's so like absurd that you can get funny. Yeah, you can get a very serious laugh, an honest laugh from a group of people because they never expect you to know this Chris Farleyism from the 90s. And it's so simple because I know the word umai is delicious, so I can always remember mayu is, just do that. And I've probably dropped that joke 10 times and it has never not exploded the room. Like, people love that stuff. People 75 years old will cry laughing when you drop that because they're just like, they never saw it coming. So I like doing that sort of stuff.
I'm going to try that joke.
You should. You should. I'm telling you, it lands.
The wrong restaurant. What are you talking about?
Little Thai restaurant, just trying it out.
Mayu! Somebody kill that guy.
Well, thank you for coming.
I don't want to keep
an awesome guest.
I have to go to my grandma's retirement dinner.
I hear my kids running around upstairs, and we go.
Dad.
Thank you so much for coming on.
Yeah,
this was lots of fun. We should do it again sometime.
More of your videos,
absolutely. Yeah. Everybody, go check out Rare Earth on YouTube.
Leave some hate comments.
Yeah. Or go
Our
check
viewers
out.
would never do that.
Talk about the up top here.
Yeah,
They're gonna love that. They're gonna absolutely love that.
yeah.
Very fitting for this podcast. Actually.
Well, all right, bros. That was awesome. Thank you so much.